There we go. Hey, guys.
Oh, hello.
Thank you so much for waiting.
No worries. I'm glad I wasn't too far behind.
No, Chris, you were perfect.
How was that, Chris?
What's that now?
How was that, Chris?
I was what now? I'm confused.
How was that, Chris? The Chris that I know's got a beard bigger than the three of ours
Oh,
combined.
Oh yeah. Okay, now.
Craig, sometimes your sense of humor is just right
It's
on
good.
point. It's just
Yeah,
so subtle. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah. Now I'm the only one here on the screen I see that doesn't have a beard. Now I've got beard envy.
Now
We'll
beard
get a
envy.
marker.
That's the worst envy. Yes.
Yeah. I'll forewarn all of you. I haven't slept. I did Fort Mac Casino last night, Scott. And then the only flight that was even remotely reasonable price was a 5:55 a.m. one. So I played till 1 and tore down. And then I was just like, there's no point in sleeping. And get back to Regina this morning and had coffee with my stepmom. So I haven't slept in a day and a half. So you may get to
look at us, Chris. One of these days we'll cross paths at that Fort Mac Casino. You just know it'll happen. Yeah.
I've seen your promo photo there when
Yeah. All right.
But
well,
you may get some delirious takes from me today anyway.
Let's get to it then. We got a lot to talk about today. We're already 4 minutes after the hour, so we'll do the quick rundown, we'll do the quick intros, and then we'll get to it. So welcome everybody watching live on YouTube or watching after the fact Monday morning to episode 204 of Long Toss here on the Walkoff every Sunday night, 4 till 6 p.m. Mountain Time, whatever that means for the rest of Canada. You let me know. Joined today, we got Craig Ballard. Craig, how you doing?
Well, I took four out of 6 in the series. I guess I'm doing okay. I got thrown for a loop real quick there. You said this is episode 204. I thought you were describing Santiago Espinal's batting average since the All-Star break last season. This is episode 204.
That's generous, okay. Craig. That's generous.
Okay. That is generous, yeah.
Joel, how are you doing, my friend?
Doing great. Watched the game. I was at a movie today, so it was on my phone. So I didn't see what happened today. So, but for the most part, I'm up to date.
You didn't miss much. Chris Henderson, nice Blue Jays hat, buddy.
Thank you. Got a little collection. I like to, rotate them around.
That's a great one.
Come out once in a while.
Speaking of nice hats, Scott, show off your nice hat.
Ooh, this is my Buffalo Bison hat. Hey, look at that. Oh, yeah.
Very nice. All right.
I dig that.
All right, we got lots to talk about today. We're going to recap the Rays and Jays series. We're going to do a unavoidable temperature check on Alec Manoa. 4 starts into the season. This team does look deep, but are they 162 deep? We'll get into that. We're going to talk Jose Berrios. Unfortunately, that narrative is not going to go away anytime soon. Bo Bichette, good news, 500 career hits. One of the fastest to ever do it. So we'll talk Bo Bichette. Nate Pearson, dominant in AAA. We're going to talk this bullpen and whether a shuffle is coming. And then, Joel, you're going to explain what's going on with sticky stuff. Once again, our resident sticky stuff expert. So there you go. And then just for fun, we're going to talk whether or not the Pittsburgh Pirates are any good. So let's get to it with this Rays series recap. Took 2 out of 3. That's good, right?
It's a win. I'm
like
thrilled.
Sending Jose Berrios to the mound when the 13-0 Rays are coming to town. And yeah, all right. Well, let's start with today's game, I guess. Alec Manoa. The velocity was back. That's all I got to say. The control was not there. The self-confidence seemed I don't know, when he balked, I was like, this is not a guy who's feeling himself right now. And then that pickoff move to second, where even Bo Bichette was like, what was that? When he almost threw into center field in the fifth inning, I think. How's everyone feeling on Alec Manoa? Scott, let's start with you.
There were a few moments in this game where a simple different bounce would have changed everything. Like that first inning, hit batsman, walk, like that little dribbler to load the bases. And it happened in about 60 seconds. Like literally in 60 seconds, Alec Manoa went from like fist pumping in the dugout to being on the mound with the bases loaded. And he had the opportunity to get out of it. And then that ridiculous little bloop single that just had eyes and landed right in the outfield where nobody was. And all of a sudden it's 2-0. And it just felt like even in the fifth, right? It was 3-1. The Jays were still in it. He got that pitch where there's 2 outs and it was 1-2. And, he threw that slider and it looked like it just caught the corner and he didn't get the call and then it unraveled. And that is what was concerning about this start. I'm not going to dwell too much on Manoah. I'm not worried about Manoah for his career, but I am worried about this April, and I think it could be a rough April because he's not comfortable on the mound, and he just doesn't seem to have that confidence that we're all so used to seeing him have.
Well, it unraveled in the fifth, but it was a tenuous start at best. What did he walk the bases loaded in the first inning? It felt like we were playing with fire all game. Joel, what are your thoughts on Alec Manoa, today's start, and the season outlook for him?
Oh, well, it's a long story, right? Like, this is a guy who grew up baseball being something that he could control the rhythm of. Now the rhythm of baseball is a static amount of time that is put upon you. So your dominance isn't like the way that he would stare you down or pause potentially in a moment and controlling the time the way a pitcher does. That's been taken away from him very early in his career, right? Like very early on, there's such a drastic change. Also, the aspect of the pitch calling this year has been really wild with him since the very, very beginning. At the beginning against the Cardinals, he was trying to call his game like Zach Greinke and Max Scherzer. He had the pitch comm on his glove and he was calling pitches. And I was like, oh, he's a young guy. And to think that he's got the veteran mindset to know how to attack hitters, that's not what you should put on a 25, 26-year-old pitcher. That's not what he's supposed to sit there, clear his mind, hit the glove with whatever he's being told to throw, at least at this age. Max Scherzer and Greinke, 15 years, 17-year careers. At that point, you know every batter in the league and you know how you want to attack them, right? So that seemed strange. And then you had issues with that. There were delays on communication, getting that figured out. They were going back and forth in games. It went from him calling a game to, I think in the fourth inning, Kirk was back to calling the game. So it was like, it's this weird shuffle of his mindset on the mound right now, that with the pitch clocks. That's a lot to put on a guy, but I'm happy to see 95. I'm happy to see 95 miles an hour. Like the fears that I had were mainly like a consistent 91 down the middle pitch that I was worried. I'm like, that doesn't play. Today I saw 95 at the top of the zone and I'm like, he's going to get himself figured out. And thank God that the velocity's there, because that's really the only concern I genuinely had.
That's a great point about rhythm, Joel. And that just really does seem to be Alec Manoa to a T this season, is he has not been able to find his rhythm on the mound. And he might be the pitcher who's struggling the most with the clock. Like he literally might be one of the top guys in the league struggling with the clock right now and kind of getting that rhythm going. So the next month will be interesting.
Yeah.
Chris, what are your thoughts on Alec Manoa? Any concern for you long term?
Well, no, I mean, long term, I'm with you. I'm happy to see his velocity up again. I was a little bit worried about that to start the year, but the only point I think I would make is that, and I've said this lots of times in the past when I was writing and stuff, is that we really put a lot of pressure on Manoah for such a young and inexperienced starting pitcher, right? I mean, he's answered the call 99 times out of 10 when he's been called, and he's been nothing short of incredible in his young career. But I was expecting him to kind of have a sophomore slump last year, and then he came out and was incredible. So for him to have like a 4-start blip in his career doesn't worry me at all. Yeah, I think it was bound to happen at some point, and I think we're very fortunate, as Blue Jays fans, that there's a guy like Kevin Gausman who can serve as a veteran ace. Because Manoah a young guy who's still going to be figuring things out. The league's going to be adjusting to him, as you said, Joel. I think the tempo thing is a relevant point too. So he's too talented not to find a way to thrive, I think, but I don't think it's anything to be concerned about when a young pitcher kind of goes through a tough spell.
Really interesting mention here in the comments from Oshawa Bob, and Bob says maybe too much outside noise ? Craig, with the fact that the Verdugo thing and kind of him being in the spotlight of the new MLB since the season started, do you think that has anything to do? Is it something between his ears?
No, that's not where I am. I have one concern with Alec Manoa. First, foremost, end of story for me personally. Scott, you mentioned everything could have been salvaged in that first inning. They gives up that 2-run single. That was on a 2-strike slider. That slider has been unrecognizable this season. It used to be a pitch that I would joke shouldn't even be allowed in baseball because we're supposed to be engaged in competition. And his slider in the past has been completely dominant. Righties had no chance. Righties are smashing it this season. The location of that slider has been the problem. I saw about 5 or 6 of the best fastballs I've seen from him this season. He painted some corners today at the top of the strike zone and on the corners with that fastball. I thought that was back. It's all about that slider. It's not been near as effective. And I don't believe I don't believe anything else is in play. Now, Craig, what is in play? I don't have that answer. But I'm looking specifically at that slider. And when Chris talks about, the amount of pressure that we've put on him, I'm looking at the Toronto Blue Jays square in the eyes for that. Alec Manoa had to be the game 1 starter last season with Kevin Manoah sitting right there. Alec Manoa had to be the home opener and game 1 starter this season with Kevin Gausman sitting right there. Man, I don't know. So if Chris is right about that, then I'm looking right at the organization. Are they putting him in the best positions to succeed? When he first came up to the majors, his first 3 starts were at Yankee Stadium, at Miami. You might say at Miami, big deal. That's his hometown team. And then at Fenway Park. Holy crap. Welcome to the bigs. I don't even know if I've seen a gauntlet like that when you first come up. So are the Blue Jays doing a good enough job with him if there is something between the ears? But bottom line, where is that completely unhittable batters hitting 120 against it slider?
You see it in baseball all the time, right? Adjustments, and that's what's going on. And this is like Chris mentioned it, right? This is the first blip on the radar we have seen in Alec Manoa's career. The greatest pitchers in baseball ever, Hall of Famers, they all have this, every single one of them without exception. And the fact that this is the first time he's had to deal with it really could say something about where he's at, right? Which is, this is the first time he's struggled. And now he has never had to deal with that before. He'll figure it out. But maybe it is going to take the month of April for it to happen. And we just need to cross our fingers that Manoah, or my apologies, that Bassett, Berrios, and Kikuchi can kind of do what they did these last 3 games that they pitched and take a little bit of pressure off the big man.
I love everybody's confidence and optimism in Alec Manoa. I'm not concerned long term. I think he'll still have a very good, if not great, MLB career. But for this season, and I'm thinking the whole season now, I'm worried that this is going to be a closer to 4 ERA than a closer to 3 ERA kind of a season. And that's not good. The velocity was up at times today, but more often than not, it still wasn't where we want to see it. I also think he is struggling with control, and I don't know what is the cause of that, if it's in his head or something physical or the pitch clock's getting to him, but just based on where I'm seeing Kirk setting up back there, and again, when there's no runners on, there's no reason to fake inside and then have a pitch way outside. Like, these were pitches that were not being thrown where Kirk was setting up. And this wasn't a runners on situation. So I don't know what it was. He was still getting strikes, but he was missing. He was not, I don't know what it was. I'm not I think this might be a beyond April kind of a thing. This might be a real sophomore slump for Alec Manoa. I hope I'm wrong about that, but
We all do, buddy.
we'll see. We'll see.
Here.
All right, let's look at the rest of this Rays series. Kikuchi pitched great yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
He's sure having a good start to the year, and boy, did he need it. Was that 2 good starts and 1 not so good start?
Yeah, 1 Kikuchi start and 2,
Well, we'll
and
take
2
that.
Bearded Dragon start.
Hey, if he's pitching well for us 60% of the time this year, I think anybody would have taken that in the offseason. So Jose Berrios left the game. He was pitching well, took a comebacker off the knee. Anybody have any updates on his timetable for return? Is his next start in jeopardy? Anybody know?
Schneider said after the
No.
game that they think he's going to be okay. I
Okay.
think.
For his next start,
Yeah.
Well, I mean, worst case scenario, next start is bad, and we send him down for a rehab assignment, right?
Now there is an
Fucking
off day. There is an off day on Thursday, so they do have the option if they wanted to just skip him in the rotation and keep everyone on regular rest. They could do it that way. So there are things Schneider and Walker can do here if they didn't want to go to Casey
No.
Lawrence or Drew Hutchison.
No, just we don't want that. Just an FYI, right now as it lines up, it's Cole and Manoah at Yankee Stadium
Yeah.
on Saturday. So I
Yes,
don't want any. I hear you, Scott. I hear you.
Yes.
But hopefully this goes as is, and we get treated to round 2 of Cole versus Manoah.
Here. Agreed.
Okay. Wednesday's game is the Berrios start against Houston with an off day Thursday. So if we were to skip Berrios, we'd be starting Kikuchi, and that would be on short rest before the day off. And then it would keep Manoah and the rest of the rotation. But how do you feel about
You're
saying
really pushing this
Kikuchi
Casey
on short
Lawrence
rest?
start on us, eh, Adam?
Wow. Hey, I'm not the one saying, maybe I am. I don't know. Like, for the first time all year, I'm reason to be optimistic with Jose Berrios. And I think that's, if nothing else, let's just take the silver lining and move on to the next topic. I don't really want to look a gift horse in the mouth, but disappointing that we lost today the way we did. I'm happy to take 2 or 3 against the Rays. I don't have anything else to add unless anybody else wants to dissect the last 3 games
know
any
what?
further.
Both
Greg?
of these home series are why I loathe, and I know it's fun for us to all have, hey, Jay's playing Kansas City. Oh, got to get 3 out of 4. Like, you got to get this. I'd be happy with this. I'd be happy with that. We would have said going into Detroit, hey, better take at least 2 out of 3. Well, they do. And then they screw up the chance for the sweep. So you walk away disappointed. We would have said coming into the Tampa series, oh my goodness, I'll sign up for 2 out of 3 right now. But then you got a chance to sweep on the 3rd day and you lay such an egg, right? So these 2 series for me were the definition of be careful what you wish for.
Heck, Adam wished for 1 win. He was like, I'll take 1 win. Give me one win against the Rays.
Okay.
All I was saying this week and all week was that buckle up. We might go 1-5 against the Rays and Astros, and to not panic if that happens. That was the point. Okay. Happy we went 2-1 against the Rays though. All right, let's look at the depth of this team. Pitching depth does it look good? How does everybody feel about pitching depth? We can start with the rotation because we were kind of talking that already, and then we'll move to the bullpen and then the batting order. But Chris Bassett,
I mean, if you look at Chris Bassett's last start, 2 runs, 6 innings pitched, when they went out and spent that $60 million on Bassett, one of the big reasons they did so was that he was considered a workhorse. He 8 innings. He was a dude you could put into the lineup every 5th day and know that by the end of the season, there's going to be 180 innings pitched on that side. And forget the ERA and forget all of that. Every team needs a dude who can do that. And that very first game of the season for Bassett made all of us really freak out a little bit more than we probably should have. I think Bassett's going to be fine. I think Bassett's going to be exactly what was advertised. He may be no better than a 4 ERA guy, but again, he's going to be that number 3 pitcher in the rotation that we need. Berrios is the big question mark for me. And listen, he had a really good start. And who would have guessed that Berrios would be the guy to end the 13-0 Rays winning streak? Definitely not me, but he looked solid. And hopefully this knee contusion is just nothing more than a little bruise, and he's right back out there on Wednesday and can build off of this momentum. And as for Kikuchi, I really look at him more like it was a blip on the radar. His bad start this season, which is, I might be completely insane, and you guys feel free to recalibrate that outlook. But I'm positive on Kikuchi. I don't think we should be like, there's all the Cy Young jokes going around with Kikuchi. I don't think we should like consider him a guy that we depend on. But as a fifth starter, Kikuchi is going to be good, I think, this year. I think he might be one of the best fifth starters in baseball.
Hey, you can't spell Yusei Kikuchi without the letters C and Y. So read the tea leaves there if you want. But no, Kikuchi has been everything we could have hoped. This is the best case scenario for Yusei Kikuchi, right? Like, is there any chance that this is sustainable from Yusei Kikuchi, that he's just figured it out and this is him now? Joel, let's start with you, because I know you have some thoughts on Yusei Kikuchi.
I have some friends who follow the Japanese leagues really well, and like Yusei's a guy who's put up a 5.50 career ERA in 3 seasons in the majors. Personally, I saw him do some stuff with the ball in that foreign substance year that got him to the All-Star game. I made a couple of videos about it, and then sure enough, after that cutoff date, his numbers were some of the worst in all of baseball. So
you got Chatwooded, you're saying?
Yeah, that really, that was a very scary part. When we acquired him, I was very worried about that second half and the date that it followed and what proceeded to happen. So, but at the same time, like, the stuff is, he's got the 3rd best lefty fastball, right? He averages 95.5 as a starter, right? That's the 3rd best lefty starter fastball in the game, right? And if you get, we were talking about how he was doing so many different things last year, different windup, converting pitches, sliders into cutters, cutters into sliders. Now it almost seems more of a backwards approach of throw the breaking ball first and throw the fastball for the strikeout pitch, because the fastball has always been inconsistent, but it's always been really great. So why not try to get ahead and then use that as a strikeout pitch, which is kind of a little bit of a backwards approach, but you look at the communication breakdown between bringing a Japanese player in and how long it takes for Pete Walker to get his philosophies across. Little bit longer than we expected, but Robbie Ray's first season was re-signed, second year, Cy Young, right? So there is a precedence to taking that type of stuff and turning it into that type of pitcher. Just might take a little bit longer when you're speaking to somebody who doesn't speak the same basic languages. So that's as optimistic, I think, of an approach as you can get on maybe it's really figured. And the pitch clock, right? Getting his head out of it and just throw the ball, damn it, right? Like that, it was always one of the, seeing Kikuchi do this all the time was his biggest issue, and we all said it, and it seems like it really was, right? So
this is actually where the chat is right now, Joel. New Brunswick, Canada guy says, I think the pitch clock has helped Kikuchi, which is exactly the point you just made. And it's funny because then on the other side, Dalchimeris says, wonder if the pitch clock is hurting Manoah. So it's like, are we benefiting or being hurt from the pitch clock? It's pretty even right now, it feels like.
Funny, Max Scherzer came out this week and said he is struggling with the pitch clock more than he anticipated. So interesting to see that coming from him, given how much he was in spring training, kind of showing off his like gamesmanship, that he was like manipulating the pitch clock to his advantage. But maybe just posturing, as now we're into the real thick of it. And this is something to adapt to for sure. Craig, what are your thoughts on Yusei Kikuchi?
Well, first of all, I understand why you started this topic with Joel. Let's get his Robbie Ray reference out of the way early. Well done. And then as far as the C and the Y in Kikuchi's name, he's been Yusei Kikuchi every single start he's had in the big leagues, and way more often than not, he is putrid. So I'm not buying into any of this stuff at all. If there is cause for optimism, actual cause for optimism for Yusei Kikuchi, is because the stuff is different this season. That cutter, that was one of the worst pitches in baseball. I don't think he's thrown it once this year. If he has, you can count it on one hand, very literally. And what did Gosman calls this new pitch, like a curved sliderish pitch. So even a veteran like Gosman can't pinpoint, is it a curve, is it a slider? So hopefully that's some cause for optimism. Where I was really, what I thought was a great point is on Locked On Blue Jays on my podcast, had the walk-off gentleman on last week, and Scott said, and I said to Scott, we were talking about Kikuchi, and I said, because of what Joel was mentioning, how we've seen Kikuchi be good for a stretch of time in the first half, and then in the second half, he was the worst pitcher in baseball. So I need to see a full season before I buy in. And Scott said, now, wait a minute now, Craig, can I interest you in that great first half again? And then who cares what he does the second half? Because by then, even if it falls apart, Ricky Tiedemann is there, or Ryu comes back, or a trade deadline. And that really turned me around on Kikuchi, because I don't believe he's in it for the long haul. We've never seen him be good for an entire season, so I cannot buy into that. But Scott's got me thinking, listen, if we can get something in the early going, and it doesn't even have to be fantastic. Scott said again, doesn't have to be Cy Young numbers. This is a guy we're counting on being our number 5 starter. If he can go 5 or 6 and give up 3 or less with this offense, that should be a yes, please scenario. I'm just going to believe it when I see it. But as I said, legitimate optimism, if it exists, is because his pitch mix this season seems to be working a lot better for him.
If Craig Spiel has taught me anything here, is that I should just tell you what I think, Craig, and then you'll put it in a much more eloquent way than I ever could do it.
Well, hang on, getting something from Scott here. Hang on, I'm getting a text from Scott. Hang on.
Yeah.
All right, so there's the starting rotation. Bullpen. Where are we at with the bullpen? Who's on the hot seat right now? It feels like Trevor Richards is the easy name to throw out there. Does anybody want to go to bat, no pun intended, for Trevor Richards and say he deserves a job for another month? Like, how much rope do you want to give Trevor Richards, Scott?
My only defense of Trevor Richards is that he can pitch 2 innings, and I don't know if that should be what keeps a guy in a bullpen, but this team does need a long man, and I think as soon as Mitch White is ready to return to once he's healthy, once Mitch White is ready to rejoin this team, and I don't know if there is some manipulation going on right now within the organization as to how long they can have him rehabbing. And this front office is all about asset management. They've liked Trevor Richards because of his elite changeup since the moment they brought him in. They traded Rowdy Tellez for him. And at this point, he really is a dude. When you look at this bullpen, he's the only guy with any sort of length to him. But yeah, I think Trevor Richards is on his last rope, or his last whatever the saying is there. I'm really fumbling this up, but
painting yourself into a pickle here, Scott.
Yeah, that's right. The pickle paint.
All right. What about Tim Meza? Because his name, I'm a Tim Meza guy. I'm a believer in Tim Meza, but his name always gets thrown out as the next guy in the hot seat lineup, I guess, in the musical chairs. Anybody else feel good on Tim Meza? Like, what's your confidence level just in a game-to-game situation? Blue Jays have a 2-run lead in the 6th inning. Tim Meza is going into the game. Do you feel like we're in good hands? Do you feel like anything can happen? Do you think it's a bad decision? Chris, let's start with you. What's your vibe check on Tim Meza?
I like Meza. I mean, he's in the past, he's shown that he's can be an elite fastball guy. He's, and I think one of the most important points is that he's by far and away the most effective left-handed pitcher we've got as far as a bullpen arm right now. So, I mean, people can complain when he has a bad outing, or, because he's one of those guys that does sort of have a bad outing every now and then. He's when he's on, and but we've seen him be off. But I just think it's all relative. I think that one of the biggest reason that he gets criticized is because there's not another lefty in the bullpen, and people want to see, a Aroldis Chapman coming in and throwing 102 or something. I don't know. I can't believe he's doing that again for what it's worth. But
Yeah.
But no, I mean, I think as a guy that's realistically in the 5th or 6th on the depth chart in the bullpen, he's an effective weapon.
So a few things in the chat here before we go to Craig and Joel. Ben brings up, he's like, why does nobody no, what does he say here? Why is Bass escaping criticism? Which is a good question, because Bass has not been the Anthony Bass that they brought in at the trade deadline. Dalchmer says no problems with Meza at all. He's good. 20 Legend says Trevor Richards is done. So all sorts of different feelings here on the bullpen options. Joel, where are you at on Tim Meza, buddy? And is there any concern in the bullpen?
I'll just combine my thoughts on Richards and Meza into one. It's just like the scenarios, like in the 3-batter scenario that you have to face coming out of the bullpen, you don't really have the lefty specialist anymore. So Meza, you use him against a team where you've got that bulk chunk of lefties, right? So it's like, do you say, is he a 6th inning guy? Well, he's a 6th inning guy if 3 out of 4 guys coming up to the plate are lefties, right?
Like against the Astros, he's going to see Alvarez and Tucker,
right. Like
exactly.
It's a specialist spot on the way that the lineup orchestrates itself for a specific inning. And you go, oh, there's 3 out of 4, 2 out of 3. Let's throw Meza out there and try to attack the lefties, right? Especially if those lefties are absolute killers. Yeah. So it's kind of, that's, to me, it's the modern day 23 lefty specialist. That's what it is now. And then Richards is just more of a situation where I've seen us in close games where I'm like, why is he the guy here in a 2-run game? Even when we're down, I'm just like, oh, this is like, I could, our bolstered bullpen should be a situation where we're still seeing some of those higher leverage arms in those games because we have the comeback potential with our lineup, right? So I've seen some situations where I'm just like, I'd rather see Richards trying to get 2 innings in a game like today where it's out of hand than I would, 8th inning in a 3-1 game where we're still going to get another round of our, going through the top of the lineup. So it's just kind of my opinion is really situational on both of them.
One point I want to throw in about the bullpen usage and Richards in particular is I've noticed a couple times that it seems like they're looking at analytics and trying to use them in opportunities or use them in spots where maybe the changeup is the most effective against the particular hitters that they're, lining them up against. And I don't mind that philosophy, provided the pitcher is coming out and having an effective outing. But we've seen times where he's missed spots and he's been hurt by that sort of thing. So I think you're right. When you touched on it earlier with Mitch White, pending to come back, I think Richards is basically a placeholder for that 8th spot, and they're probably trying to showcase him a little bit too to see what they can get back for him, because there's going to be a point where they're going to have to make room in the bullpen whether they want to or not.
An Espinal Richards bundle.
Yeah.
Here's a little piece of trivia, and then we'll throw to Craig. Tim Meza, over the last 2 seasons, has been used in which inning more often than any other inning? The 6th inning, 7th inning, or 8th inning?
7th.
I'm going to guess 8.
How many seasons? 2?
Just in the past 2 seasons. Last season and the chunk of this season.
I'd say 7.
Joel?
I'd say 8th.
It is the 8th inning more often than not. So for me, this is where Tim Meza feels like he sometimes gets unfair usage. Is he's almost used as like the setup man when our real setup man pitched yesterday and the day before. Like we don't have Garcia, we don't have Swanson. We need a guy who can just hold it. So Tim Meza is our best option. I don't know if he's good enough for that. Like he feels good enough, but not quite good enough for that. And I think that maybe sometimes why he's getting exposed. Anyways, Craig, what are your thoughts on Tim Meza? And then we'll look at Anthony Bass because, he is off to a putrid start himself.
Well, start with Meza then. So yes, the only lefty for that criticism. Yes. Now I talked earlier about, I wonder if the Blue Jays are doing a good enough job setting Alec Manoa up for success. There's just no doubt they've not set Tim Meza up for success. Bringing him in to face Aaron Judge for that 61st home run, whatever they were thinking in that wild card game. There are so many examples, and they're all John Schneider related, by the way. They're all John Schneider related. I don't think he has a clue how to use Tim Meza. I think he's been really poor where that's concerned. Having him come in and in the 8th inning, for example, that's Swanson's inning. That's Yimi Garcia's inning. You've got back of the bullpen guys for that. And there's a tough lefty coming up. Swanson's better against lefties than Meza. So I don't want to hear any of that myself. Talking about Anthony Bass, why is he getting a pass? Because Swanson has taken his spot. So there's no spotlight on Bass right now. And on Trevor Richards, all the stuff we said about Mitch White and everything could well be. Trevor Richards is a Toronto Blue Jay until the very millisecond that the Blue Jays say, okay, Pearson's ready to be that 2-inning guy. That's what they're grooming him to do in the minors right now. Nate Pearson will take over for Trevor Richards at some point. And Trevor Richards will have some trade value. He's a strikeout machine. I know Blue Jay fans are disgruntled right now. Trevor Meza will have, you guys were laughing at a package of him and Espinal. That's my topic today, guys. What's the package going to be for, and you guys were laughing at it. That's my topic today. What's the package going to be for those two guys? Yeah, I think he'll still have value around the league. But Tim Richards is on there, Trevor Richards is a Toronto Blue Jay until they say, okay, Pearson, you are ready to come up to the big leagues and be our 2-inning guy.
I do think that you are correct, Craig. Espinal and Richards do have value on the
Thank you. Okay. Thank you.
what that value is, I'm not sure, but we will get to it in your topic here. A big shout out to the grounds crew, our listeners right now who are just so full of baseball knowledge themselves. I did just want to bring this up real quick. Dolce Marist says, he's sharing some knowledge. He says second base wouldn't open a spot in the pen, 13 pitcher limit on the roster. So what he's talking about there is, can they just release Jordan Luplow? That was something that was brought up in the chat, and then go to a 14-man pen. This was something that was available to the Jays last year. However, now that we're further away from the pandemic and the crunch on the roster, it is only a 13-man pen. So it would need to either be an injury or a straight up DFA, as there are nobody in this pen outside of Zach Pop, and I don't want to touch him, that can be optioned down to AAA. So Dolchmaris, thank you.
Shout out to Zach Pop, by the way. Some CanCon that's killing it, by the way.
Isn't he?
Yeah, excellent.
It's funny because when they made that trade at the deadline last year, Bass came in as that high leverage guy. And like, as it goes on between the two of them, I'm like, this might very well swap by the end of this season. It could be Pop in high leverage situations where you're like, we'll put Bass out in the 6th and see what happens. So
what an underrated trade that's turned out to be so far. I mean, it's still early, but I mean, I think the Blue Jays really maximized value on Gross ends there.
Mm-hmm. Especially with no spot for him on this roster.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, good call.
I have a feeling on Tuesday you're going to be talking about that 2-seamer break a lot with your guest pitching, because I've seen videos of that Pop 2-seamer with the outline on it, and it's just like, what is it? It's the backwards slider, and you're like, wow, that just doesn't, the break on that thing makes no sense.
That's nasty.
For everyone listening, by the way, Joel's talking about, we have joining us on Tuesday, Rob Friedman, the pitching ninja, is coming on to do an interview with us. So we will have that out Wednesday morning. So very excited for that. If you are in chat right now, you can DM us at Walkoff Podcast on Twitter, or the Walkoff Podcast, to get your questions in for the pitching ninja.
What is the options count, and where do I find this? Can someone speak up and let me know a website where I can see available options? Because all I know you get so many options for call ups and downs. I can't see anywhere that tells me Tim Meza doesn't have options. Same goes for Adam Simber.
Go to Fangraphs or Spot Track typically.
All right. Someone in the grounds crew look that up for me. Tell me Tim Meza doesn't have options. Well, we got a show to run here, Scott. We got a show to run. All right. Let's move on from the bullpen then and talk this batting.
Sorry to cut you off. He has 2 options remaining.
Okay, that's what I thought. Okay. Tim Meza has options. Can you check Adam Simber as well? Because I believe Adam Simber
he has options as well, I believe.
Okay.
I'll double check, but I'm sure he does.
There you go.
So if they really did want to do some asset management and really upset some fans, they could send down a few have options.
Simber has 3.
So,
Wow, Simber has 3 options.
So, all right. I'm just saying, Jay's got options. All right. Let's look at this batting order because it's as deep as I can remember it ever being. Obviously, the guys in the top half, it goes without saying, the top 5 are absolute mashers, but even the back end of this lineup. Other than like Brandon Belt and Jordan Luplow, there isn't a single bat on this team that I don't have some reason to be encouraged by. Right? Like even if Espinal's struggling or Kirk's struggling or Danny Jansen's struggling or Kevin Biggio's struggling, they still have like some upside. Kevin Biggio's going to the plate. I think 50-50 chance he's getting walked. I know it's not quite that high, but there's some optimism. How are we feeling about this team? Is there a chance this can just be an offensive juggernaut all season long, or is the cool off inevitable? Because it just feels like there's too many hot bats that we won't have someone always firing on all cylinders. Right now we have like 5 firing on all cylinders. But Joel, what are your thoughts on this offensive team? Here's your chance to bring up Lourdes Gurriel Jr. and Teoscar Hernandez, the all-time Blue Jays in your books.
It's a balancing act. What you're playing for now is station to station ball, more contact, more base hits, less strikeouts. And you're weighing that against the 3-run homer. You know, you're weighing that against what Teoscar brings. You're weighing that against what now the issues long-term over the course of the season are going to be health with guys like, Kiermaier and Belt.
Good point.
Guys who have, Springer, who's had issues playing 162 over the last 5 years. So it's like you're worried about right now. This is April baseball. I've got the wood right here. Everybody's healthy, right? In that situation, we have a nice healthy season and everybody averages 152 games played. We're looking really, really, really good. But, we right now are, for as happy as we are with our lineup, our depth is really top heavy. And we're relying on guys hitting 370 right now, 400, 440, So is that sustainable? Absolutely not, right? So our reliance on this offense has to be much, we can't be having those games where we have 9 hits from the top 3 guys and then our 4 spot goes over 4, right? So we've had a few of those. And, as good as the guys that we brought in are, those left-handed bats, none of them saw the field today. So it's an interesting situation where you come up against that lefty pitcher, the McClanahans, the Carlos Rodons, the dominant lefty pitchers in the game. You're like, well, how jacked up is our lineup? Freddie Rodriguez for the Detroit gave us fits, right? So as dominant as we are in some areas, we're not so dominant in others. So it's a give and take.
But my point is this, like, of course, Matt Chapman isn't going to hit 600 all season long. It's going to come down. Even at some point,
his approach though is completely different, right? Like, I'm really excited to see what Matt Chapman is.
Look,
wait, are you arguing he's going to hit 600?
No, but like this is a very different Matt Chapman than the previous, 7 years of professional baseball that guy's played. Like the swing is cut down, the approach is all fields, the power isn't lowered, the contact rate is way up, the strikeout rate is way down. Like really encouraging metrics across the board for Matt Chapman. That his numbers 440 isn't going to carry, but 300, 280 from Matt Chapman, that's MVP conversation. If Matt Chapman is batting 280. He's top 5 in MVP votes.
Sure. And this is all my point is that with the depth of this team and with the hot start as a reminder, it just feels like even if Matt Chapman has a 2 for 42 stretch in him this year, at no point this year is a pitcher going to face Matt Chapman and go easy out?
I think so.
Right? Like Aaron Judge hitting 286 right now is as scary as he's ever been.
Mhm.
Whether he's hitting 250 or 350, it's Aaron Judge is kind of the point, right? So that's all I mean in terms of the depth of this team, and we are seeing it right away, which is great. Dalton Varsho is starting to like make a name for himself as an offensive threat, which I don't think has ever been associated with his name before. And I recognize it's 13 games into the season, but when you put it around the bats that he's at, you have to go pretty far down the lineup before you're like, okay, good, we got Kevin Biggio. I can take a breath here and pitch to Kevin Biggio. But then right after that, it's like, oh, Kevin Kiermaier's hitting 310. That's basically the leadoff man. I don't know.
Going to chat here. You do have people on your side here, Adam. An interesting comment from Andrew McLeod. He says, "Don't you find the batting order very top heavy? ? What if Bo, Vlad, and George go cold? Chapman, Kirk, Belt will carry an offense for 10 days? ? I think not. Teo and Gurriel will be missed." But I feel the same way as you there, Chris, which is, I feel like they could carry it. Do you want to expand on that?
Oh, yeah, no, I think Adam's making a really relevant point, and not to go back and beat a dead horse with the whole Teo and Gurriel Jr. thing, but I look at it. People talk about a lot, a loss of power hitting or something to the lineup, but I think Varsho is capable. He's showing already just the raw power in that bat. I think he's capable of hitting the same amount or more home runs than Teoscar Hernandez does, especially when you're talking Rogers Center versus playing in Seattle. And Gurriel Jr. wasn't necessarily a power hitter last season at all. And so far, Kiermaier is more of an offensive asset. I don't expect Kiermaier to keep that up all year long, but when you combine that with the defense that they bring to the table, I really think it's a massive improvement. And that's no disrespect to the former Blue Jays. I'm a huge fan of both guys and miss them and their personalities and everything. But I just think this is all around. This is a more improved team. But when it comes to the lineup, I agree with you. If you roll the right set of guys out there on any given day, and for what it's worth, I like Biggio and I still want his career to work out well, but for me, Whit Merrifield's the second baseman that should be playing 80% of games. And when you line up the right kind of amount of guys, including Brandon Belt, for me, I know he's had a really rough start, and then last year was awful. But I mean, the guy, if you look at his career and you look at what he did in 2021, I still think that situationally, you use him, in the right spots. I think he can still be an asset as well. And that goes back to your point, Adam. I think there's potential on any given day for there to be 9 hitters that are worrisome for the opposing pitcher, and that's a position we haven't been in for a long time. But when guys go cold, why can't Kirk carry the lineup for a week? Why can't Chapman do that? Because inevitably, it happens. It's a long season, and that's why it's so important to have that depth in the lineup.
So a little asterisk here, just to go back to the bullpen and options talk that we were having. Daltmerist being our stat expert here, he says, after digging around, if Meza has 5 years of service time, which he does, he would have to consent to being optioned to the minor leagues.
Tim Meza doesn't have 5 years of service time.
Is he only at 4?
He has 5 seasons, not full seasons.
Oh, does that not count?
My understanding is it doesn't.
Oh, okay.
I believe you have to play 2/3 of your team's games that season for that to be counted as a full. There's a percentage.
That Tommy John surgery will make that not the case. Yeah.
According to Spotrac, he has 3.156 years of MLB experience.
Send him down.
Send him down.
No, I'm kidding.
Nobody knows what's going on is the point. Anyways, welcome to the walk-off.
We need Daltmerist running this ship. He seems to know everything.
All right, Craig, let's go to you then. What are your thoughts on the depth of this team offensively?
First of all, do you know how happy I am that Scott is pronouncing it? I didn't know how to pronounce his name, and he's been kind enough to drop some comments on mine as well. So say it again, Scott. Daltmerist?
Daltmerist.
Thank you. Okay,
like Dulcimer, as in the musical instrument, and then ist, as in like a guitarist of Dulcimers. Dulcimer,
No, I
correct
think-
me if
no,
I'm wrong on that.
No, I think he thinks that was helpful. I don't know either. Okay, let's just move on. Okay, the bottom of the Blue Jay lineup. Oh yeah, boy, I'm trying to figure out how not to be a Debbie Downer here because the flexibility, like the base running at the bottom of this lineup in Toronto Blue Jay history, there's never been with Merrifield and Kiermaier at the bottom of that lineup. It's the best base running in the history literally in the history of the Toronto Blue Jays. The thing is, the actual production guys, the bottom third of the Blue Jays lineup is bottom third in baseball in every single category you can think of. And the top third, obviously, as you can imagine, is at the top. So from an actual production standpoint, the bottom of the lineup actually has not done well. I mean, Kiermaier was like 4 for 19 on this homestand. I'm a huge Whit Merrifield guy. I think he's the X factor for this team. He's been good. He hasn't been as good as I thought he was going to be. I don't think the fan base is ready to talk about Santiago Espinal because we cheer for it. Like, he's so easy to like. He has just been putrid. At the risk of being thrown off this show, Danny Jansen has been putrid. There's been problems at the bottom of this lineup. I'm not as high in the bottom of the lineup as I think a lot of you gentlemen are, but I certainly am agreeing with Chris. I don't know what would be so wrong with, having a 7 to 10 game span where we needed to lean on Matt Chapman and Belt and those guys in the middle and Varsho and those guys in the middle of the lineup to do the heavy lifting. I'm not super concerned with that. And I mean, Varsho didn't have a good homestand either, but we know what he brings to the table. And I was at the game on Saturday. Oh, I just want to mention real quick, Dalton Varsho, on one hand, I could count the amount of players that I would have paid a ticket to go watch play defense. He's just incredible to watch defensively. I'm not smart enough to know, but I know we all live like something happening in the world happens like, whatever split second, and then we understand it and realize it, right? Like we're always living a tiny bit behind in what's actually in baseball terms. Holy cow, Dalton Varsho is living in real life right then and there. You wouldn't believe the jumps he gets on these pitches, man, on defense. It's absolutely incredible. But the reason that this topic is so important is when did we see the 2021 Blue Jays really make their charge? When was last year's Blue Jays team really at their best? It's when the Jansens, the guys at the bottom of the lineup, the 7, 8, 9, did produce, turn that lineup back over to the mashers at the top. So, man, very important. And, of course, that's going to be important with a lot of teams. With the Blue Jays, we're not just talking about a lot of teams here because the Blue Jays are one of the rare teams who have actual World Series goals, like legitimate World Series goals. And the last thing I'll say on the offense is, sorry, that commenter who I appreciate watching and commenting, sorry, he was saying we're going to miss Lourdes with the 5 home runs, Lourdes Gurriel Jr. That's you're thinking I'm going to miss this guy here. I'm not going to miss this guy here.
Okay, a couple things in chat. Number one, just so you know, Craig, I'm saying Dulcimerist wrong. There is no H in it. It's a soft C. I'm being told here in the chat. So it's Dulcimerist. I don't know. We're gonna just stop trying to.
It's a made-up instrument. Who cares?
Secondly, Michael Borland. Let's talk second base really quick because Michael Borland brings up a really good question. He says, Scott and Adam, question for the panel. What do you think happens at second base? None of the guys are getting enough ABs. Do you think a trade is imminent?
I don't think imminent, but I do think likely this year.
You know what hurts is I think we missed our window. Take your mind's eye back to the beginning of spring training. Yep. Biggio was on fire. Merrifield was on fire. Espinal was on fire. All three of them, I think, were at their top value right then and there. Scott said from day one last season, I like Santiago. What's not to like about Santiago Espinal? Yeah. Like, this guy's easy to cheer for. But my concern is if you give him every day at bats, he's going to get exposed. What did we see in the second half last season? After the All-Star break to right now, he's hitting .219 with 1 home run. To say he's been exposed, I think is putting it mildly. So I think it's a great point. I think their trade value has plummeted. If you're the Blue Jays, you got to hope to get lucky that somebody out there still sees value in Biggio. Somebody out there still sees value in Espinal. I know they suck on the Blue Jays, yeah, but if we brought them here with our hitting coach, things would be different. And Espinal, remember, Espinal brings some defense with him as well, right? So hopefully that's going to help with some trade value also. But yes, I think it's a great point. What's been going on at second base right now, I thought the Blue Jays would be dealing from a position of strength, not like with the catcher spot, not like that, but still dealing from a trade from a position of strength. And it's simply not happening.
Joel, how long can you see this merry-go-round at second base going on?
It's tough. It's taking up 3 spots, it's and it's relatively the same player. Like there isn't some person standing out who's gonna just shock us and go and hit 350 and rock a bunch of home runs. It's kind of low power guys, run the bases well, play pretty good defense. Like Merrifield is the one that to me, when it comes to the lineup, like he's the guy I want hitting 9th because his doubles still play, right? He's consistently hits doubles, always has over his career. So if he's coming back and he's the guy that you kind of want to, it's a veteran shift on this team. That's what we've done, right? That's what the offseason moves were. We're no more fun and games, bring in the veteran presence. So it's like, Witt is that piece, Belt is that piece, Kiermaier's that piece. So you kind of got to, put your, I don't know what metaphor you want to pick, but you got to, stand in the ground here and say, this is our guy. And because holding 3 spots, how long do you do that for? How long do you have three catchers on your lineup? Like we've moved that, but now it seems that bulk up of roster is now at second base, and it really doesn't need to be, right? So I think either way, you just have to, it's not a position where I feel like you're going to get bit in the ass either on who you let go, right? Like Biggio may have that upside next year when the robot umps come in. So, right, that's something to think about, I guess. He's young, but like, I don't think moving one of them, you're going to, go, oh my God, what's wrong with us? We moved Santiago Espinal. He's a 7-time All-Star. And, I don't think we're going to have to worry about that. Right. So it's just, it's taking up a lot of time. It's taking up space. And that's, to me, the real issue.
I'll say one thing I will say about Biggio is he needs to get 2 out of 3 games in this Houston series. That's one team that still might covet him. His dad works in the front office there, right? Like he needs some at-bats in this Houston series to show he can hit at that ballpark. Something's got to happen to build up some trade value for these guys. Because even if they start playing well, do any of us want these guys ahead of Whit Merrifield? It's got to be trade value, and it's got to start building.
Yeah, I don't think the trade value has plummeted that much on Espinal or Biggio. I think if I was an executive for another team, I either was fooled by Espinal's season last year or I wasn't, and I don't think this season has an impact on how I feel about him. He's an affordable guy who has shown like he can play a good middle infield position and hit well enough where your fans aren't going to be clamoring to replace him. Like if I'm the, I don't know, Marlins or the Athletics or something, Espinal's like my dream guy to put it shortstop. Yeah, I think Biggio still has that like maybe optimism around the robo umps and like, he sure knows a good strike zone.
Funny, man. That's so the optimism. It's like, are the rules going to change again?
Well, they are for sure. We're getting robo umps. It's a matter of time. It's just a matter of will Kevin Biggio still be relevant at that point. But I mean, there are reasons to be interested and be like, hey, we'll give you a left-handed reliever. You guys only have Tim Meza. We heard he has options and you're thinking about sending him down. Here's a left-handed reliever for Kevin Biggio or for Santiago Espinal. Like for me, I don't really care about sewering the value of either of these guys by having this merry-go-round at second base, other than if we do have a position that we need to fill, and the bullpen is the obvious answer there, that, again, it's like the catchers in the offseason that Joel brought up. That's our position, not of strength necessarily, but of depth, certainly. So it just feels like that's the, you do what we did with the catchers. You go, hey, all 3 catchers are available. Which are you interested in the most? And what can we get back for it, right? And then you do the math on a deal around that. But I don't think it's imminent in that we got to trade them before their trade value goes any lower. I don't think we should be in a panic position over it. But I don't know, Chris, what do you want to jump in there with?
Well, I was just going to say I kind of disagree with almost everything you guys have all said about this topic.
Perfect. Please, this is great.
No, to me, yeah. No, I mean, to me, it comes down to usage again. If we're facing left-handed pitching, Merrifield's probably going to get a start in the outfield, and Espinal has shown in the past he's a much better hitter against southpaws than he's not an offensive asset when you're starting him on the regular against right-handed pitching. But there's not really a need to, in my mind. Like, if you're facing righties, start Kiermaier, start Varsho in the outfield, the Springer. Merrifield can play second base, and to me, the guy that's the odd one out in my mind, which is a clear odd out, is Biggio. Because Espinal also offers the backup plan in case Bichette needs a day off. Espinal is a far superior defensive asset. It's not to say that I don't like Biggio, but to me, he's the guy that it feels like they're forcing playing time for. And I if I were at the helm of the team, I would be trying to get Merrifield as many starts at second base as I could. Just getting him in the lineup with the regularity. And but then against lefties, Espinal, I think, is a serviceable guy to be starting. As a platoon guy, and it has a value as a backup at shortstop and at third base. In the event that the other guys need a day off or heaven forbid an injury.
My stance on Espinal, and then Scott, you can jump in here, is always just been that, like, I think he is the thing we would get the most return for.
Oh, and I think you're right.
So that's like my only reason for, like, if I'd rather not get rid of anybody than get rid of somebody just for the sake of getting rid of somebody. But if we can get like a decent lefty reliever or a bad lefty reliever for Biggio, then I say give me the decent lefty reliever and good luck in Pittsburgh, Santiago. Like, I don't know. Anyway, sorry, go ahead, Scott.
No, I was just going to say in the chat here, and by the way, everyone in chat, we're almost at 85 of you following along here. Hit the like button, by the way. That would be wonderful. I know we're only at about 20 likes, so if you...
I did say on our last one that if we got to 100 today, I would get my mullet permed, so...
Yes.
Nice.
Tell your friends. Join the
close
chat.
eye on that number right now.
Scott, viewers are down to 17 now after Adam said that. What the heck just happened?
Okay, so of course, now it's scrolled out of my site. Toons Days with Johnny says currently Biggio has the highest wins above replacement of the three at 0.0. I'd be up for trading 2 second basemen for one better one. And then,
can I just say that? Sorry, go ahead. Sorry, Scott.
No. Go ahead. Step in.
I was just going to say, as enjoyable as this conversation is, 3 months from now, the conversation is Bo moving to second and Addison Barger being the shortstop anyway. But still, let's enjoy this conversation.
So to that, Daltmer says, not during the season in which the Jays are pushing for the playoffs, because Jim, just above him, says if Espinal is traded, are you guys comfortable with Lopez or Barger as a replacement?
Exactly. Yeah.
Then Craig, expand on that.
No, it should be
comfortable? No. Are you comfortable in the middle of...
Oh my God!
For the point. Sorry, I know. Sorry, I'm jumping all over Craig. Sorry, but just the point there was exactly what the viewer said. It's a season that they need to go to win. So to ask Barger to come up and be the guy right now, that's not fair. That's not.
Hold on. Why would we be asking Barger to come up and be the guy?
Well, Craig was just saying in 3 months that we'll move Bichette to second base.
Barger will hit 8th. That's not asking him to be the guy. He will walk in the door as a superior defender at shortstop to Bo Bichette, and we'll ask him to hit 8th in the lineup. We're not asking too much from this. And this is 3 months down the road, Chris. This is 3 months of more seasoning for this guy.
3 months down the road, if we've moved Bo Bichette to second base, we're not competing.
It's not going to happen.
Oh, oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
I'm just saying, okay. we're either like winning the division and Bo Bichette is good enough, and then why would we mess that up when we're in first place? Or we're so far back that we need to make a change, in which case the season's almost a loss at that point. Like, I just don't see us making a massive transition like that at shortstop if things are going well, if we're really contending, if we're 20 games above 500 in July. Now we're going to mess with that and risk the pouting and the upset feelings or whatever the vibe in the locker room by moving Bo Bichette, like one of our main guys, off of his position. That's crazy to me to think that would actually happen if we're having a dominant season.
I like Addison Barger, by the way, Craig. I really
love
do.
him.
And I truly do believe in him long-term for this franchise. My problem is you put too much pressure on a young kid to defensively fill in when he's never played in the big leagues, and you're asking a lot. He's only 23. So to put him in the middle of a playoff push like that, are you confident enough in his mental between the ears?
Holy shit! That's a fucking big spider.
Okay.
What did he say? There was a what?
A big spider.
A big
Oh,
spider.
jeez.
I hope there was 100 people in chat for that.
Yeah.
Don't worry, guys. We got the spiders.
The spider is dead.
The spider's dead.
Oh,
Bad
my
tacos
goodness.
for the spider. Okay.
Convince us, Craig. Why should we believe in a guy who's never played shortstop at the major league level?
I was ready to catch absolute fire, and then whatever the heck that was, just threw me. Okay, my gosh. Well, the idea that the Blue Jays will be so good, why move Bo? They've been so good every year with Bo. It wouldn't have been a problem. They've looked to move on from him at shortstop every single season, so I don't see how that would be a problem. Addison Barger, only 23. Bo and Vlad are 23. What's the only coming into play here? What do you mean only 23? Addison Barger is a superior defender as we speak right now to Bo Bichette at shortstop. I'm not, and you keep talking about, but putting a lot of pressure. This is not the scenario we would be bringing him up. If it was going to be too much for him, this would not be something that is happening. If the role they're looking for Nate Pearson, it's not going to happen. If this would be too much for Ricky Tiedemann this year, it's not going to happen. The Blue Jays bring any of these guys up, it's because they're absolutely ready to contribute on the big league level right now.
And I don't think they're going to
think-
bring Addison Barger up.
I think it's far more likely that, and I'm not saying that Barger won't be the shortstop of the future at some point, but I think it's far more likely that he ends up playing second base this season than Bichette being moved to second base this season. I don't think they're going to take their, a guy that I predicted Bichette's going to finish top 3 in the AL MVP voting this year, and I stand by that, regardless of the deficiencies defensively. But I can't imagine a scenario where they say, unless he's really sucking defensively, like unless he's like so bad that they don't he gives the team no alternative but to move him. But I really don't believe that's going to be the case, and especially given just the way they're building around him and the way that he's showing even more just what a central figure he is to the offense. I can't imagine, in the middle of a season where they're hoping to contend, upsetting him like that, because he clearly wants to be the shortstop. I think that's a move that has to be made in spring training, not in the middle of the season.
So Joel and Adam, you'll like this comment. New Brunswick, Canada guy says it was a spider attack instead of a spider tack.
Nice.
Hey, he
All
did it.
All right.
That one gets me right here. That one gets me right here. Thank you.
That was good.
All right. I feel so stupid about that.
I hate spiders so much. I probably would have got a flamethrower out, and it'd be out of the
well, I have a little bit of a messy office right now, and I saw it crawling down the wall, and if it made it to the floor, it could have been anywhere. I just couldn't risk it, so it had to. Anyways, priorities. Got my priorities in order.
I thought a moose came, and I'm not even joking. I thought a moose came crashing into your house. I'm not even joking. I cannot believe that was the
moose
reaction.
came through the window.
That's almost how big the spider was. It felt
my good
as
Lord.
big as a moose. Okay. All right.
Okay.
Where were we? No, Addison Barger is not going to be if he's our everyday shortstop at any point this season, something has gone horribly wrong. I just can't see it. I can't see it. I think that's.
I can see it if Bo got hurt. That's
that's something that's gone horribly wrong.
Right.
So there you go. All right. Anything else anybody wants to add on this infield? I mean, we could talk Bo Bichette got 500 hits as fast as humanly possible, almost literally. 407 games. He did it faster than Mike Trout, faster than Juan Soto, faster than anybody I could find. Manny Machado. Albert Pujols was the only name I was able to look up that was faster to 500 than Bo Bichette.
Ichiro was faster.
Yes. Fair enough.
You know what I'm excited about from Bo in this upcoming series? Because April Bo has always been atrocious, right? And the Blue Jays always play Houston in April. Now Houston's about to get a load of September Bo that's carried over to April 2023, Bo. This is the new animal Houston's going to see this on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I'm excited about that. The Houston is struggling, but we all hate Houston still, right? Like we need to go get 2 out of 3. And there I am again. Careful what you wish for, Craig, saying go get 2 out of 3. But anyway, need to do well in this series. Let's put it that way.
Yes.
Here's one small compliment on Bo's defense. His tags this year on the throws down to second have been brilliant. He's taken the throw in front of the bag now, and he's dropped, instead of there being the like possibility of the ball hitting the runner, going off the bag, and him taking it behind the bag and trying to slap down the tag. He's out 2 feet in front of the bag and he's dropping it back and making the tag. And it's like, those tags have been really, really nice this season. That's just totally.
I think Bo is going to be fine at shortstop. I predicted that he would be an average Major League Baseball shortstop in 2023. I'm going to stick with that prediction. I know that there's a lot of people who can't stand his defense, and I almost feel it's a bias at this point where you're looking into it to try to find the negatives of his defense, because if you watch anybody play shortstop, there are warts. You know, like the best Major League shortstops still make errors. It's a tough position. And I don't want to be a Bo apologist, because yes, this team needs to reevaluate things if he is still leading the majors in errors by the end of the season. But we all know Bo's the shortstop for 2023, right? Like no one actually thinks he's going to be moved this year, right? Feel free to step up if you.
1,000% I do. I've been clear.
You really
1,000%.
do, Craig. You actually feel he'll be moved.
1,000%. 1,000. No, that it could happen is what I'm saying. That it could happen. That it would not surprise me at all. The Blue Jays 4 off seasons and 3 off, whatever it's been, have looked for a new shortstop. They are not married to Bo Bichette at shortstop. And somebody, what's that? Sorry.
No, sorry. You go ahead. Finish your thought.
No, I just that they are not married to him at shortstop. If defense matters at all, it would not surprise me. He is not the Toronto Blue Jay long-term shortstop going forward. I just simply don't believe it. They've looked to move on from him so many times. Not looking to move on from Bo Bichette, looking to move on from him as their everyday shortstop. They've done that many seasons in a row. I think it continues.
I think it's one thing to pursue a Bogaerts a shortstop to replace him, because I mean, you know, like our veteran, you know, there was a bunch of shortstops that were out there. I know I butchered his name, but you get what I'm going for.
Yeah.
But to replace him with a rookie in the middle of a season,
it's a pretty big slap in the face.
Yeah, I'll eat the sock on my foot if that happens.
I could see him getting moved if we do like make a trade. Like if we traded for Andrelton Simmons at the trade deadline or something from Chicago.
Andrelton Simmons is a free agent.
Yeah, 4 years ago, Simmons.
They tried. They tried to get Simmons a couple years ago. That's a great example, actually.
But again, it's a veteran in spring training. Like and that's just my opinion. I hope I'm right, because I still have faith in Bo long term in the position, and or at least for this year, at the very least. But I think he wants to be there. I still think he's a good enough athlete that he, like you said, Scott. I think he can be adequate, and I don't know.
That's what we're after, Chris. Adequate. Give me adequacy. You
know? If you're adequate at shortstop and you lead the American League in hitting, in hits,
take it every day.
I'll take it all day long. Yeah.
There's a thing about Bo's defense. He always wants to throw the ball. Okay. And there's a lot of defenders who will hold the ball and not throw it. Okay. In those situations where you don't throw it, the outcome is very much the same as if you throw it and it scuffs in the ground and the base runner doesn't advance to second. If you mathematically look at it and you say, I shouldn't throw this ball, but I make it 30% of the time, you're getting that out as opposed to the guy who doesn't throw it, right? You're saying, I'm going to get that out, and that out is more valuable than the 40% of the time that it goes in the dirt, and the guy just gets the exact same outcome of me not throwing it, and the 25, 30% of the time where I throw it into the stands and the guy goes to second. So he's weighing the 30% of the time that he gets the out to the 30% of the time that it's going into second. So it's a lot of errors that he takes on, but he's a shortstop who always wants to make the play. He always wants to make the play.
You just put a sparkle in Adam's eye.
Oh yeah, Scott knows. This is my biggest thing with Bo Bichette is like, and we saw it in like the 9th inning against the I don't even remember what team it was, but it was, you want a guy who's willing to like make a bad throw in order to make a good throw.
Let's make the comparison to Jeter, because he did it, the amount of hits.
Well, you're really making a Wayne
hits.
Gretzky comparison is what you're doing. You miss 100% of the shots you don't take, right? That's what we're at
Sure.
with Bo Bichette.
Let's do that. But let's do the Jeter comparison, because Jeter got to 500 hits in 407 games, same way that Bo Bichette at the exact same hit per game rate, which, you know, is different because that's the, you know, the Yankees of that term and whatever, that doesn't matter. But do you think about Derek Jeter's failures defensively in the postseason? Remember that horrible play that he made in the postseason? He's the worst defender ever in shortstop history, right? Where's that one defensive play in the postseason where he just cost the Yankees everything? No, you think of the most amazing plays, you know, the flip, him diving into the stands. You think of, and he's the worst. And it's like, that's a guy who's always willing to do whatever it took to make the play. And sometimes it looks really ugly and you don't make it. But he's going 200 feet out into the center field, which I don't like, you know, and still putting himself in danger that way. But he wants to catch everything, right? And I love a guy who wants to catch it and throw
Andrew McLeod in chat says, Bo is, in all capital letters, not a major league shortstop. Anything different is 1, gaslighting for financial gain, or 2,
he's in my back pocket.
Not watching the Blue Jays games.
Well, I've long said that the motto of the Walkoff should be, what was it you said there? I forgot I even worded it there. For financial gain, that describes you guys. That describes shady for financial gain. Gaslighting for that describes the Walkoff podcast. Busted.
Oh, buddy. All right. I think one thing we can all agree on with Bo Bichette is that the paint job on his bat this year is the coolest paint job in the league. That like black bat with the worn out sweet spot. I don't know if he sandpapered it himself, but it looks like it's just worn out from bashing balls, and it is the coolest thing the 12-year-old in me is like so in love with the paint job on his bat.
We saw the 12-year-old in you earlier when that spider entered the chat.
All right, fair enough.
Well played, Craig. Well played.
Well played. All right, we're getting long in the tooth here, and we still got lots to talk about. So let's just zip ahead a little bit, and then we'll get to everybody's topics. But before we do, Nate Pearson. How are we feeling about Nate Pearson? It's the name that never dies.
Take a look at his numbers, Adam.
I know, it's 19 Ks per 9 in AAA right now.
What? I knew it was good. That's video game right there. Wow.
It's absurd. It's 6 innings, and he's got 19 strikeouts. I don't even know how that's possible. Also has like 11 walks per 9.
No, it's not. Yeah, 6 innings is 18 out. So that's not possible. Yeah.
13 strikeouts in 6 innings, I think it was.
Thank you.
I think, yeah.
Yes. Which is still a video game.
Yeah, I know. Yes. Yeah. No, I didn't mean to be a jerk. I just was like,
no. It's if you don't, someone else will, and they won't be nice about it. So. Yeah. Nate Pearson, though, the walks, the control is still an issue, right? Like if we're looking at the walks this season, honestly, 5.7 walks per 9, not going to get it done. We talked about this with Julia Cruz from MLB.com last week. In AAA right now, he can walk the bases loaded, and then they just go, well, pitch yourself out of this jam, kid, and then he strikes out the next 3, right? If he walks the bases loaded against the Astros or the Yankees, he's not seeing a fourth
Trevor
batter.
Richards. Yeah.
We're bringing in Trevor Richards. So like he needs to figure that out. And I don't think he's going to get a sniff of the big leagues until he can get that walk rate reasonable, because that walk rate is also video game numbers if I'm playing. Like,
well, and that, you know, that's the luxury the Blue Jays have right now, though, is that they have the luxury of time with him. You know, he's been a guy that's missed so much time in his career that we've been hearing his name and been dreaming on his potential for years. But really, at the end of the day, he still doesn't have like a long-term, consistent track record of being healthy, being effective. So give him a month or two in AAA. There's nothing wrong with that right now with the roster as it is. That's healthy. When you got Pop that's performing, you know, White will probably come into the equation as a long man. You know, I think he's going to eventually push his way into the picture. He's just got too much talent not to. But but why not just give him all the time in the world to get that command under control and just be the absolute weapon? Because not only could he be a 2-inning guy, I think he could easily be a guy that factors into late innings if he develops the season the right way and stays healthy.
So, Chris, my question to you is, if you feel he can push his way on to this roster, let's say end of May, his strikeout rate is still where we're seeing right now. It's a large sample size, and we're all blown away talking about how he's striking out 2 every inning. His walks down a little. Is there a moment where this organization, in your opinion, just is like, okay, we're going to lose an asset. We got to have Nate Pearson pitching in this big league bullpen?
I mean, why not? I mean, if that asset's Trevor Richards, I think it's a no-brainer at some point. Because I mean, you're in a season where you're going for it. Like, they've never spent this kind of payroll before. So to like worry about losing Richards in June, to me, is just like not to slander Richards. I think I do actually think there's some value there too. But to me, Pearson's could be a guy that is like a true difference maker, the kind of talent that you go out and pay a premium for to add to your bullpen for the stretch run. So I'm hoping he shows up in late May or June or something like that, and has that time to really develop it, find his role, and to fight, whether it's a 2-inning guy or whether it is I could see him. I love the idea of having Swanson as your situational lefty, and lining up that Garcia and Pearson and Romano at the end of the bullpen. I also dream on Tiedemann as part of that late inning equation in September too, and just think about lining up those guys. But yeah, I mean, I think that you're in a season where you're trying to win. You're spending more payroll than ever. You've renovated the ballpark to suit your needs, and whatever you're doing, right? But to me, if Pearson forces hand, you give him a spot.
So to be fair to Nate Pearson, the walks per 9 is high, but it is also only 5 innings pitched, which means
small sample
he has
size.
4 walks. His first 2 outings had a handful of walks. He's had 1 walk in his last 3 games.
Manoah down there did that in the first inning today.
Jeez. Uh-oh.
So just keep that in mind. Where I know I said like if he walks the bases loaded in AAA, I know that's not really happening, but small sample size. It's funny how walks get magnified more than I think strikeouts do. Like if he's striking out 2/3 of batters through 5 innings, that still feels impressive. But
it is.
So adequately put, Scott. All right. Have we said enough about Nate Pearson, or anybody else have any other thoughts to add here before we move on to sticky stuff?
I thought that was really interesting what Chris said there, and kudos, because he's redeemed himself from that Bo Bichette debacle that all of you were part of anyway. But when he talked about, no, I'm kidding, but when he talked about the fact of the timing of it now for Pearson's whole, and that's why Blue Jay fans can't stomach this conversation anymore, right? Because it's always been, where's Nate Pearson? Where's Nate Pearson? Where's Nate Pearson? Where's Nate Pearson? Chris brings up the point. Now this season, it's more like, hey, look who's almost getting ready to come up, Nate Pearson. Oh, is that right? Oh, is that right? So he's not going to come up with any sort of a spotlight on him or pressure or anything along those lines. And the Blue Jays would only bring him up if he was ready to face that 6 to 8 batters. You will not face fewer than 6. You will not face more than 8. So get yourself in that mode. And the best time we ever saw Pearson ever was in that mode in the playoffs against Tampa Bay a couple seasons ago. Remember, they told him you're getting these 2 innings, come hell or high water. He faced 6 batters. He struck 5 of them out. So I'm right there with Chris. Tiedemann and Pearson at the back of this bullpen at the end of the season. I'm excited about both.
The truth is, too, and we haven't really touched on it, is that when it comes to bullpen, health is going to play a lot into this. And there probably are going to be opportunities allotted to Pearson, allotted to Tiedemann, allotted to Zulueta and Danner and the whole bullpen in Buffalo, which is probably one of the more dominant pens in all of AAA currently. So there are going to be some opportunities, and we'll just see who is going to take that. I think that you're correct, Craig, in assuming that the first shots are going to be Pearson and Tiedemann maybe later in the season, if that's when the opportunity is allotted.
We do have Chad Green joining the bullpen, potentially coming back from injury. We'll see. I mean, because it isn't a guarantee that he's going to come back and be healthy by August or September or whatever. That'd be nice. But what I want to ask you, we were talking lefties in the bullpen earlier. Any chance Ryu is a bullpen guy this year when he comes back, or does his stuff only work if he's in a starting role? Joel, you feel like a guy who has strong opinions on Ryu. Could he be effective as a 1 or 2 inning guy?
Never done it. It's a situation where like nowadays baseball, you have openers. We haven't really seen Major League or the Toronto Blue Jays take on the concept of an opener, or that situation. Weirdly enough,
so
Pearson.
you're acting like Wilmer Font didn't exist.
That's right. I stand corrected. I stand completely corrected. We're all about the opener in Toronto. But I really think Ryu's coming back to start, right? Even coming into spring training, like he's still recovering from Tommy John, but athletically he looked like he was in good shape. He looked really, really like a really jacked up Ryu. So he's coming back to start. That's who he is.
6-man rotation, or whose job is he taking?
There's no such thing as too much starting pitching. Okay. We all know that. So whenever he comes back, Chad Green as well, whenever he comes back, I don't put too much faith on guys coming back and being dominant off of Tommy John, right? Tommy John, like Justin Verlander just did it, right? But usually you see guys taking about a season to get their velocity back, because you're pretty much resetting your arm. Your arm is literally being reset to stage 1, and you have to build it up all the way back to where you were. So it's very tough. But then that second season, Ohtani, for example, he's throwing harder than he ever threw in his career, right? So it's usually
expect a bad season from Ryu in the second half this year.
No, I'm just saying don't put all the when guys are coming back at the 14, 15, 16 month mark, don't expect that pitcher to be who they will be 6 months later after getting everything, sorted out, right? Like
right. I just want to know, if this is a contending team, can we afford to just be donating whatever we're getting out of Ryu to the schedule once a week? Like, where are we going to fit that in? When the argument we just had for the first half of the show was, can we afford to jeopardize Bo's attitude by moving him to second? Like, we can't afford to bring Barger up and have him learn how to play shortstop when we're contending. Can we afford to give Ryu starts once every 6 days?
We always afforded to give Ryu starts. He's always better on an extra day's rest, right? So to me, I approach his relief, as you call it, as a start here and there. Right? Like, I don't ask him to completely change who he is as a pitcher, but if he's able to come in and take a start against a lefty dominant lineup, maybe he plays better against Tampa Bay. Maybe he situates better against a team like Houston that has nice lefty hitters, and you want to see that matchup more. But it's really guessing 4 months from now how our pitching staff is going to be.
I just think that we need to be careful about like being too excited about Ryu, and that it's not going to be a simple integration. Like, we have 5 starting pitchers already who, like, if everyone's healthy, if everyone's given us a 4.5 or better ERA, maybe that's too optimistic of me. I don't know. But
it is for sure. Cause like the average, sorry, I don't know if I just cut off there, but I think the average team uses like a dozen starters or something in a given season. So I think the answer to whose job does Ryu take when he is healthy is probably like Mitchell or Casey Lawrence. And I hate to say that. I mean, but the chances are that guys are going to start. And the cool thing, or not the cool, that's not the right way to put it, but I think with Ryu, you have luxury when he's coming back from Tommy John. You bring him back and he's healthy when you need him to be healthy. So if that means that, somebody gets a blister, and then, okay, well, suddenly Ryu's ready to go. And I think that's the luxury of it. Is he's so I think you keep your expectations in check for him. He's not going to be a savior. He's going to be a depth 5th starter. That's really what he's going to be.
Sorry, go ahead, Scott.
No. Finish your thought, Adam.
Just with Ryu, I mean, like, yes, if there's an injury, if there's bad tacos to one of our starting 5, then he's the obvious choice to plug in or whatever. But like, if there isn't, or if we're talking about Yasser, whoever, like whatever the 5 is that we've got going when he makes his return, it's a complicated integration to put him back in. And even if he takes Jose Berrios' job, even if Jose Berrios is struggling and it's August and now Ryu's back, and are we going to put Berrios in the bullpen? Like, that's also like an ugly. I don't know. It's ugly.
A few things I wish to point out about Hyun-jin Ryu. Number one, it is common amongst pitchers with Tommy John surgery that they are not their best until almost a full year after they return to pitching. So hoping that he steps in and is the guy he was in 2020, which is obviously the Hyun-jin Ryu that as a Blue Jays fan you would hope is who is taking the mound, or at least a slightly lesser version of that. It might be a little unrealistic to expect him to do that. Now, that said, Hyun-jin Ryu is also a very crafty veteran who has never relied on velo, and that is, of course, going to play to his benefit in this scenario because he is going to be able to use that wily veteran presence he has to try and get through some innings. And that's really all the Blue Jays, in my opinion, are going to hope from him, is that they can stick him in a spot start here, very similar to what Chris said with he's going to take Casey Lawrence or Drew Hutchison's spot as that guy who is going to fill in when we need him most. And we continue to not act like injuries are going to happen, and they are. You know, like when it says whose job is he going to take? Well, whoever's on the IL, like knock on all the wood that's not the case.
Sure, but it's not going to be a season. We can't say it's likely to be a season-ending injury. So, like, sure, if he comes back in August and Kikuchi happens to be on the IL at that point, then yeah, for sure. But also, Kikuchi's going to come back at some point.
Right. I think coming off of Tommy John too, like I think that you could see a scenario where Kikuchi, say for example, misses a couple starts and Ryu fills in for him, and then suddenly, Ryu's got a little inflammation after those 2 starts after he came back. You know, he's going to
little wink
time on the you know, and a guy in the last year of his contract, he's gotten paid very well as he's rehabbed up. You know, let's play ball here, man. You're going to be part of the equation. Well, if you pitch well enough, you know, maybe you make the playoff roster. But I think there could be a lot of creative IL stints and stuff that would make that work. Because you're right, it could in a perfect scenario, if Berrios, you know, finds his 2020 form and Kikuchi looks like he has so far this season, then it's hard to imagine him breaking into the fold. But.
Okay, let's wrap it up there because we only got like half an hour left and we got 6 topics to get to. So, Craig, let's start with yours. What is your topic of the day today, and how does it relate to Santiago Espinal?
We hit it. We touched on it. Espinal, and you know what's the trade value going to be? I've always thought that trade package would bring back somebody to help the bullpen, or a back of the end starter type thing. But I think we nailed that.
Okay, well, fair enough then. We got to Craig's topic earlier. I'll take it since we're short on time.
5.
Yeah, there you go. All right, Joel, let's go to you then.
I guess my I don't know if we got to it, but for one substance, I guess we could talk about the Domingo Germán situation, and that was rather interesting. What do you guys think about it? Because
before you pose the question, explain what happened for anybody who doesn't watch every Yankees game.
And this is speculation, right? I'm not on the field. I don't have these people mic'd up. I don't know exactly what happened, but what appears to have happened is that Domingo Germán was using rosin in the dugout, and he was coming out every inning with his hand loaded up, already sticky, but he was saying, no, I'm just using rosin. I'm using it in the dugout, which is allowed. I'm using the substance that is permitted for me on the mound, which is there, and I'm supposed to use that. I've just got some of my own over here, and I'm using it. And so he came out multiple times. He was warned multiple times. The umpire said he keeps coming out to the mound with something on his hand. And then he verbally told him he has to wash his hands every single time before he comes out to the mound because he was coming out with something sticky on his hand.
You had a great lip sync on your TikTok of the ump telling him.
It was really interesting. It was because I was just sitting there and I'm like, if he's coming out and this is the 3rd time, why are we still doing warnings here?
And it's not like,
And it's not just this is Domingo Germán. Like, this isn't the most beloved player in Major League Baseball, right? We're not trying
Give
to
me
say
a reason to throw Domingo Germán out of a game.
Like, don't
give me a
bury
reason.
Domingo. Come on now. This is the face of baseball. No, like if anybody are going to jump on for doing it 3 times, I don't know, it'd be him. But I don't know. I just thought it was a pretty interesting situation. And, turn that around. I think Garrett Cole's pitching completely clean, and he's throwing some of the best baseball of his life. So this isn't like Yankees hate. This was just a very situational thing that happened. And I'm just kind of shocked. My question is, do you think that should be something that should have been punished more than what happened and just allowing him to get back onto the mound? Or was it, I'm just making, a mountain out of a molehill?
Yeah, I don't know where I stand on it. I mean, it is a weird amount of rope to hand out. Like, if it was an issue that needed to be corrected, I don't know why there was just ample like lecturing from the umpire of like, hey, stop doing this. There should have just been like, hey, you're disqualified.
Like with the pitch clock violations being called, like, oh, hey, now you got to be in the 1 second here. We got 1 second. But this is fine. You can do that. You can make that mistake 8 times. It's just.
Matthew Strong in chat says New York gets special balls, special umps, special close fence too.
Well, that's where my frustration on this whole thing is and Joel, correct me if I'm wrong. That the last time I read the rule is literally when they put it out, and I remember 0 references to warnings in there and conversations in there. If you're caught, it was supposed to be cut and dry. So here's where I really am upset with this. Of course, Germán is a jerk and all that, and he's a Yankee, all that. Rocco Baldelli, the manager on the other team, comes out and says, hey, pardon me, and he's the one that gets tossed? Are you absolutely kidding me right now?
Yeah, it was insane.
I didn't. Broseph in chat says, I stand with Rocco, and I think we can all agree with
Thank you, Broseph. Yeah,
totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they said that they were going to double down in the off season. I feel like they said that they're going to double down. They're going to potentially check you now when you come out to the mound, right? And because there was too much leniency last year. There really was, especially in the playoffs. I think some people were down to some shady stuff in the playoffs.
And Joel, you saw the numbers after the 4th inning, after they made him wash his hands. What happened to the spin rate, Joel? I know you saw that. It plummeted on every single pitch.
Like plummeted.
On every single pitch.
So it's just, and the umpire comes up to him and rubs his hand and goes, "What's that? Rosin?" He like gives him the escape, and Domingo just goes, like, sure, yeah, what is you got the murderer with blood hands? So like, what is this, raspberry jam? Yeah, raspberry. Like, what is?
Oh my gosh.
This glove fits, right?
Right, like it's
wow.
To me, it is really it was a really shocking one, and
yeah.
It's not over, I guess, right? It's still happening.
Well, on that note, let's move on to Chris. What's your topic, buddy?
We've kind of talked about it a little bit too, but I was looking at Berrios and just the solutions for what for having outings like his last one, and talking to a friend of mine who does some analytical work in pitching departments and stuff. He's pointed out a few different things that I think are really relevant, and looking at the tape, and I'm curious to see, or I'm curious if any of you have noticed this, or if this is something that if this is something that's even discernible. But it pointed out that his tempo and his actual pitches, like when he's throwing his fastball, he's actually offering the delivery more quickly than when he's throwing his off-speed pitch. And to me, when I've watched him when he's been at his worst this year, it's when they're teeing off on that fastball, and so that concerns me. Just looking at if there actually is a difference in the tempo, then maybe that can be a tipping point for major league caliber hitters. But secondly, I'm curious what you all think of. Is it feasible to develop a pitch in the season? If so, what do you think might be the most effective thing? I'm a big proponent that the guy needs to add a cutter at some point, but it might have to, unfortunately, be something that should have happened a few months ago or will happen in the coming off season.
I love this question for a few reasons. Number one, I'm sure most of you are aware, and if you're not, this is what happened. Kevin Gausman now has a slider, and he was talking about the development of this pitch and whether it's a slider or a slide curve or whatever you want to call it. It's a new pitch that goes the opposite way of the splitter. It has been very effective for him. It has definitely helped him get inside on left-handed pitching. He says it took him 2.5 years to get to the point where he truly felt like this pitch was a weapon. Think about that. That is an incredible amount of time. Now,
that's a Cy Young caliber starter too, right?
And this is a Cy Young caliber starter. So that said, obviously, baseball players are not a monolith. Not everyone is the same. Development is not linear or on a graph or something you can be measured person to person. So could someone develop a pitch mid-season that is capable of getting outs? Maybe, but I don't like the idea of it.
Here's the thing for me. I think what you guys are saying is, especially what Scott's saying there, is accurate 99 times out of 100. Berrios might be the one difference, because to Chris's point, that four-seamer is getting hit like pitches I've never seen a four-seamer get hit like Berrios' four-seamer. So even if you could try a cutter and it doesn't do great, could it be a lesser of the evils of the fastballs, right? Could there be some sort of improvement on it? So I don't mind that idea at all. As soon as that came out of your mouth, Chris, I thought that was very interesting. Have him try the cutter instead. I kind of like it. And I wouldn't mind seeing where, not in the chips over, but seeing how, if that is effective. Pete Walker, I think Pete Walker has taken steps backwards. I think we all thought he was this god pitching coach, and we've seen a lot of things from him that probably have us taking a little bit of a different perspective of Pete Walker. But helping pitchers with the cutter, that is something that he's had success with as a pitching coach. So I don't know, Chris, I really like that idea. And everybody's just stunned that I agreed with somebody, I guess. Is that what's happening here?
Okay, for me, I want to explode on that question, expand on it, I guess, not explode on it.
Oh, good Lord.
If, let's just crystal ball, let's say this season is just a disaster for Jose Berrios, but we still have, 4 more years on his contract? 5 more?
5 more.
How?
6?
Is it 6 more years?
It was 7 years to start with, right?
Yeah. Right. And this is the second of
year 2. Yeah.
Okay, so 5 full seasons after this.
After this full season.
Yeah.
He's on.
Sorry.
How much would we be? How much would your eyebrows raise if he blew up everything about his game this offseason? If he came back as a sidearm pitcher or went knuckleball, Scott, I see that R.A. Dickey picture behind you. But hey, we know what's his face from Sidearm Nation. That's when guys go sidearm, right? Is when it's a last ditch effort when they can't make the overhand delivery work anymore. Call it a gimmick if you want, but it's a different look, right? How would you be upset if you went into spring training in 2024 and Jose Berrios was a sidearm pitcher?
Yeah.
Yes.
Would you?
Me too.
Yeah.
Because I'm kind of at the point where I'm not. If this is just him, if he's just going to do his best and his best is a 6 ERA, I say blow it up and learn a knuckleball, buddy. Let's get weird with it. You could be unhittable once every 5 games because you already are, but do it with a knuckleball.
Chat says, what about an ephus pitch? So, yeah.
Wow.
For Berrios, his thing has always been from the beginning is he's the most consistent pitcher in baseball, right? Those great years that he put up in Minnesota of, let's say he averaged a 3.60 ERA over about 4 seasons, healthy probably for all of them. The thing with him is he throws really, really well. And then the blow up game jacks everything up, and you can't juggle that blow up game. You can't, when it comes to postseason time, you know that he can do it, but the failure is so bad. It's 8 runs. It's you lose that game. But even though the Jays have proven that they can win that game, weirdly enough, he comes out and his worst possible game is, you know, an inning and 2/3 at 8 runs, and it's just atrocious. So it's that weird situation of his consistency is weirdly inconsistent. And do I want, like, the pitch that I would like him, if he was to learn a pitch, it's like he could talk to Manoah and see how Manoah throws his 2-seamer. So he can get that like break in the opposite direction of the slurve. And then, like, because the 4-seamer, it's a very flat 4-seamer. It's a very flat 4-seamer at 95. And the other thing, it's funny that you mentioned R.A. Dickey. The thing that R.A. Dickey did for his rotation is that the guy who followed R.A. Dickey, who his fastball automatically seemed like it was 5 miles an hour faster because he was coming.
That's what I'm saying. Let's get knuckleballs from Berrios, and then let's
That's not what I'm saying.
Nate Pearson behind him. It'll feel like it's a 205 instead of a 105. Let's go. Let's do it.
What I'm trying to say is that the other guys in the rotation have almost similar looks to what Berrios is. Fastballs at 95, good breaking balls. Bassett, Gausman throws the splitter, right? But fastball, righties, all around the same velocity, right? So when it comes to Berrios, what comes in advance of him is kind of similar, right? So maybe here's just a small thing. Maybe put him behind Kikuchi, so the look is drastically different. You get the lefty throwing one day, and then Berrios is the guy. I'm not saying make him 4 or 5. I'm just saying let him follow a lefty, because the look is completely different than following 3 straight righties that have a very similar 95-mile-an-hour fastball and probably better breaking stuff, at least more consistent breaking stuff. So his stuff, I think he's not being really set up in that rotation, right? The way that, I don't know, that's totally out in left field, but.
I don't know. Here's a concern that I have with Jose Berrios is the career numbers where he looked good. He was doing it in Minnesota, like small market. This is all of a sudden the spotlight's on him now. Like this is a different animal from like a psychological standpoint. I'm concerned about that. I'm concerned to see how he does when, sure, maybe he has a blow up game every 2 games or every 3 games and it's really bad. But now when you're doing that in Toronto and it's on a playoff contender, there's a lot more questions being asked post game of you, of your manager, of your teammates about that performance that I don't think he was having to put up with in Minnesota. So it's not easy. It's
But from a pressure standpoint, Berrios is a completely different animal. Because remember, this was the Blue Jays re-upping with Berrios an entire year early. When have you ever seen that before? Like these two came together in a marriage a year before they needed to even have contract discussions. So that's where the whole joke of how many years does he have left? That's where that all came from. So I can't even come down on Shapiro and Atkins for whatever happens with Berrios, because I applauded. I can't be just hindsight, right? I applauded that at the time. So yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see what happens with him. I like the idea of the cutter. I get, it's still a fastball, but his 4-seamer is just sitting there, straight as an arrow to be dealt with. At least the cutter might have some movement. I would sacrifice 2 or 3 miles per hour to get at least some movement, because there's not. Jose Berrios' slurve is still a top tier pitch in baseball, but he's got nothing else to set it up.
Well, and that sinker kind of has a bit of arm side run, right? And that's sort of why I feel like the cutter could work, because it sort of works in the opposite direction and gives you a different velocity from the slurve. And I don't know. I mean, it might be asking a lot. I would like to think that he was working on that in the past off season, and maybe it just wasn't ready. Like that's kind of my hope. But I don't know. He's got too much talent to not figure something out.
He's such an enigma, man. Like it's just like what?
He had 17 quality starts last year, right? Like
it's insane. I just don't get it. But
no. Anyway, that's my Berrios rant.
All right. Scott, let's go with you then.
All right. Well, let's end on the consensus best 2 divisions in baseball, the AL East and the NL West, because some weird things are happening. those of you in chat, not sure if you have checked the standings recently, but currently the AL East is scary good. Tampa Bay 14-2, New York and Toronto 10-6, 9-7 for the Orioles, and the lowly, the god awful Boston Red Sox sitting at 8-8, still above 500. But gentlemen, take a look at this NL West and what is going on, because it doesn't seem to make sense. And I just want your opinion on whether this is just a blip on the baseball radar 16 games in that will correct itself, or if maybe the NL West isn't the juggernaut everyone had it pinned to be. Arizona currently sitting as the leader of that division, 9-7. The Los Angeles Dodgers are 8-8. Everyone else is below 500. San Diego 8-9, 5-9 for San Fran, and Colorado's just a joke at 5-11.
Well, business is going to pick up for San Diego real soon. At some point, Juan Soto is going to show up. I don't know what the heck's going on with them there. And I don't know if you've seen what Tatis Jr. has adopted some new strategy in the minors where every single time he comes to the plate, he hits a home run. I'm actually for it. I think it's a pretty sound strategy, but he's just been incredible. I saw 2 of his minor league games on the weekend. I saw 7 of his at-bats, and I'm not even, you can look at, he had 5 home runs. He had 5. The announcers couldn't freaking believe what they were seeing from this guy. So business is about to pick up for San Diego. And of course, Arizona's doing well. They got rid of that bum Dalton Varsho, that cancer in the locker room, and they brought in 5 whole home runs with Lourdes Gurriel Jr. Of course, they're doing well. Oh,
so you're telling me, Craig, Fernando Tatis is good in AAA?
Yeah, do you believe it? Do you believe it?
The $300 million man?
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you believe it?
Who saw it coming? Joel, what do you think, buddy? NL West is this just a blip?
It's just like, I'm going to talk about the Dodgers. We haven't talked about the Dodgers, but it's the year that they didn't put their foot on the gas in the offseason, right? And that's just kind of I think that's a little bit of a statement to those players that, we put we go for a decade, go for 15 years, right? And this was the year that they're like, well, maybe we're setting ourselves up to be in the Ohtani sweepstakes.
I was going to say, it's the year they sacrificed for Ohtani.
Right. So what does that say to if that's the feeling that's going around in that locker room, is that you didn't add this year because one guy is more important next year, what does that put in your mindset, right, for winning? I don't know. I'm not saying that's the case, but Dodgers have been one way for a very, very long time. And all of a sudden they hit the gas. Or they hit the brakes. They pump the brakes, and what does that say to an organization that has always been win now, win hard, win 120 games, win. So,
well, I know baseball fans everywhere definitely are sad for the Dodgers and their fans. So what a horrible thing for them to need to deal
When
with.
can the big guy catch a break? Come on, baseball gods.
The worst part about those Dodgers, though, is, they got guys like, it's also kind of a transition year for them, because, they got guys like Vargas, Bush has been incredible in AAA. Outman's up, playing well. Lux was supposed to be the starting shortstop. And that's kind of like another cheap core that's coming up, and it just makes me sick to think about, like, if all those guys reach their potential, then they can go and spend on an Ohtani, and after they've already retained the ridiculous amount of money that they have, and guys like Betts and everybody else that's there, Freeman. I'm watching that young core, and I'm like, oh.
I know, it's the same thing in New York, right? New York.
Yeah.
They were supposed to have really painted themselves into a corner with all those big ugly contracts, but now they've got like Anthony Volpe and Jason Dominguez, and they're just gonna totally bail themselves out. And
you can see how in 3 or 4 years it's gonna be a problem. That's
it's quite the division. The Dodgers are gonna be fine though. They're gonna still win that division, right?
No, Padres. I'm with Craig. Padres going to win that.
Padres?
Run away with it.
Yeah, I think Padres are going to win that division too.
I still
think Arizona. I honestly believe Arizona is going to finish above 500 this year. I don't think that they're going to.
I think they're this year's Orioles.
But yeah, I think they're this great example.
Great call. That's a great call.
Yeah.
Thank you. I was due for one. Blue Jays 10-6. Yeah, the AL East is going to be tough. I'm surprised the Red Sox are 500. I thought they were going to, I mean, whatever. They have lots of time to still finish the year well under 500, but they look sort of competent right now, which is, I didn't expect that. They are.
I think the
exceeding
Red Sox are
expectations.
better than people are making them out to be personally, but
No.
time will tell.
Okay, here is my topic for today. This was a comment after Ricky Tiedemann's outing. We talk. Where's his stat line now? We talked video game numbers. Ricky Tiedemann in his first game of the season in Double-A pitched 3 innings, struck out, 9 batters. That's a 27 K per 9 rate for Ricky Tiedemann. So
Is that good?
yeah, that's all right. That's all right. So my topic is this. This was a response to a Keegan Matheson tweet about Ricky Tiedemann. So just food for thought, and I just want to throw this out there. This comes from @Josh Perry, says, I guess I'll pose this question now. If we get to the trade deadline and we have the opportunity to make an all-in move, define that amongst yourselves however you would, but if we have the opportunity to make an all-in move, would you be okay with letting Ricky Tiedemann go?
Nope.
And I should have been better with when it was my turn for the topic, because that was sort of the part 2 of my topic. Because if you're not going to be satisfied at the trade deadline with what an Espinal or a Biggio or these guys are going to bring back, if you really are big game hunting, if you're the Toronto Blue Jays, then it is Ricky Tiedemann. And I think Chris is sitting there shaking his head with that awesome hat. I'm gonna use my bald head. I'm gonna join him with the shake as well. I'm way in on Ricky Tiedemann. It would have to be something. I mean, would I move him for Jose Ramirez? Like, is there a superstar? We may have a different conversation, but is it to complete the all-in for 2023? No chance.
Like
Listen,
Ricky could be that guy in the second half.
Exactly correct, Chris.
It's tough to answer this question without an example. So New Brunswick, Canada guy in chat gives an example. What if it's for Corbin Burns and Devin Williams?
That way, I said if it's for a superstar, you just listed 2. You just listed 2.
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing though.
What else are you adding though? I mean, you're not getting Burns. You're not getting Burns and Williams for Tiedemann.
Obviously,
right?
There would be a package. Tiedemann would be the big blow.
Right.
But it is a good question, because if you think about where this team is at, and I know nobody likes to use the term window, especially not Mark Shapiro, God forbid, right? It's always a garage door opening of a contention garage door opening, right? But if there really is this window, right? And you're thinking of where Chapman is right now, the fact he's a free agent. If July 31st, this team is right in the thick of it for winning the division. Starting pitching and a stud back of the end guy is what puts them over the top. Do you roll the dice on a Tiedemann package for something as high end as Corbin Burns and Devin Williams? Joel? Or Adam? Sorry, buddy.
No, we can go to Joel first.
Like the only singular piece that I'm going for that doesn't have long-term attachment, like if I'm getting Ohtani. If I'm getting Ohtani, then sure. Okay. But I have to, if I'm dealing Tiedemann, I have to be able to get something that is dynamite for 5 years, and it's on, and I'm getting those. I know that you can't guarantee that you're going to sign somebody that comes in, right? But so you have to, it would be a situation where you're bringing somebody in who is Jose Ramirez like, and you've got him on the contract that he's already got. Sure, there, right? But it can't be some sort of piece, just like Craig said, to put us over the top for this year, and you've got no guarantee after this season, or it's just an extra year after that, right? I'm not giving up that type of arm for the over the top piece. It better be considerably move the needle.
So one word answer around the horn then. Would you move Tiedemann for the best rental on the market you could possibly get, Craig?
Oh, no,
Joel?
one word you said, not an action. Yeah, no.
Joel?
Ohtani.
Okay, Ohtani. So Ohtani,
I can't give you one word. It's not a chance in hell for
Yeah,
any
okay.
single rental ever.
Even Ohtani.
Not even no. Imagine,
Okay.
sorry, I gotta actually finish this thought. Imagine that we traded Alec Manoa 2 years ago for a rental.
Yeah.
And you're watching him pitch for the Angels right now, knowing he's got 5 more years. Like, I think Tiedemann has ace potential. I think he is the best left-handed prospect in baseball. And there's no rental. I'm with you guys. If it's a long-term guy that's locked up, maybe, but I can't.
I think that there is a 0% chance, by the way, that we are.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Right. Like I don't think that has ever happened.
Yeah.
I don't think we can. I mean, even if we look at Corbin Burns, right? One of the best pitchers in baseball. He has this season plus one more, then he's a free agent. If you're giving up Ricky Tiedemann, you have to sign him to an extension. He is going to cost a pretty penny. This is a team that cannot afford to add more pretty penny contracts. We need guys who are going to afford us the ability to sign Vladdy, to sign Bo.
Agreed.
And Ricky Tiedemann, if he pans out, is the kind of guy that can allow us to make those signings. I am a believer that a quote unquote all-in move this season is a terrible move for a team like the Blue Jays. I think you want as many tickets to the dance in consecutive years as you can get. You don't want to be the favorite one time and then back to where you were before, because being the favorite, you're still probably not going to win the World Series. Like, there isn't a single move where I think the Jays become 51% favorites to win the World Series. So if that's not the case, give me 10% odds 7 more times in a row. And then hopefully magic happens. That's where I come down on like playoff windows and competitive whatever. Give me a team with like 7 shots at a World Series. Hopefully things go right 1 out of 7 times. But to put all our eggs in one basket and say, this is the year, Chapman's in a walk year and he's having an MVP season, and this guy and Kikuchi's doing like a 3 ERA. This is incredible. Like, I still give me 6 more years in the window rather than 1 more year where we're probably still going to lose anyway. Just like statistically speaking, probably still going to lose. Seems like bad math to me. I want a guy like Ricky Tiedemann because he allows me to sign Bo Bichette. He allows me to sign Vladdy. Maybe not allows, but like increases my ability to sign those guys. And I'd rather have a team with Ricky Tiedemann and Bo and Vlad than a team without Bo, without Tiedemann, but we have Vlad and Corbin Burns. That's where I come down.
We're 5 minutes over time, but I do want to know this one last thing before we call her a night here. And thank you so much, Craig and Joel and Chris. You guys are awesome. Really appreciate you being on the show here. So speaking of trade deadline acquisitions and emptying the farm, if it's not Tiedemann, do you go all in on somebody? Do you give up 3 top 10 prospects at the deadline? Chris?
I mean, yeah, I think it is a win now year. I mean, like if the right opportunity presents itself, like to me, Tiedemann's the kind of like premium kid that with the amount of money that's being spent on the rotation, they need somebody internal to come up and be that guy over the next few years in order to build that long-term sustainability. And Adam's right, in order to be able to afford to extend Vlad or Bo or both. You know, but could there be a scenario where Elvis Martinez gets traded or Barter or, you know, others? I think it could, and not that I want to see that happen, but I think I don't think I've ever seen the Blue Jays as serious about winning as since like '93, since Gillick was throwing around, you know, league leading payrolls. I didn't think they would ever be a team that spent this kind of money. And maybe I've just been disappointed for too much of my life about the payroll restrictions. But I think they're in to win this year, and I don't think there's going to be a lot other than something like trading Tiedemann they wouldn't do.
Craig, would you give up the farm for a big acquisition at the deadline?
We would have to revisit it. And there's my George Costanza leaving that big hat behind the. There's my Costanza, like getting myself to come back
Costanza.
on when I say you'll have to have me back on here, because it would depend who it is. I'm not averse to it at all. When I look at Seattle last season, they gave up the three of their top guys. Brought in Castillo, who not only was awesome for them, they re-upped with him long term. If it's something like that, now wait a minute, you've got my attention. If it's a move for the sake of making a move, because this could put us over the top in 2023, oh boy, I got major trepidation there. And I'd be stunned if Shapiro and Atkins did that. Chris alluded to, I always say, Shapiro and Atkins, the Jays have never been in better hands, and everybody always comes back. What? Pat Gillick and Paul Beeston, 92-93 World Series. So true. But as Chris mentioned, Jack Morris was the free agent, cut him a check. Dave Winfield was a free agent, cut him a check. Dave Stewart was a free agent, cut him a check. Paul Molitor was a free agent, cut him a check. San Diego can't afford the re-ups coming with Alomar and Joe Carter. Send them. California can't afford Devon White. Send them. Back-to-back years, the Blue Jays were the highest payroll in baseball. That is not sustainable. By the very next season, they were the worst team in the league. And until they made the playoffs again in 2015, they had the longest drought of any team in North American sports. So just making it rain, cutting checks, not sustainable. What Shapiro and Atkins have built is sustainable. So it would stun me to see them do something like that.
Joel, finish us up here, bud.
Yeah, I just can't see right now with the trades that we have made for the players that we have re-upped for, right? Like we made big trades for Chapman. We made big trades for Berrios. We've kind of already done the trade a lot of the pieces away to build a core that we can hopefully depend on for the next 5 or 6 years, right? The main point of this team to me right now is re-signing Bo and Vladdy long term, right? So bringing in somebody, completely throwing away the youth of the team, those things aren't guaranteed right now. We haven't guaranteed that we're going to re-up Vladdy. We haven't guaranteed that we're going to re-up Bo. So can you take the risk that if those contracts aren't signed, that you've also given away your youth for that one run at it this year? So to me, if those contracts were solidified and you knew you had Bo 5 more years beyond his free agency and you knew you had Vladdy for 10 more, sure, go for 2023, but those contracts aren't locked down. So until you have that, I can't say sell the youth.
Jason Austin says in chat here, as the Dodgers fan of the group here, the always being in the mix is great until you only win once in 10 playoff appearances.
Oh, boo-hoo. For Dodgers fans. Like, come on. Get out of here.
You won 3 quarters, let's be honest. You didn't really.
Hey, look, this is the thing, though, is if you
hate
win the
making
World Series
I hate
10%
making
of the
playoffs.
time,
Yeah.
that's a great
You
outcome,
take it.
right? Statistically, your chances are what? 3% if everything was equal. So yeah, 1 in 10. I'll take that. If the Jays win 1 World Series in the 2020s decade, I am dancing.
We're taking 1 playoff appearance in 10.
All right, let's get out of here, fellas. I've had a lot of fun tonight. Let's do it again sometime. Next time at your house. Scott's bringing the beers. Scott,
we're not coming to your spider-infested house. That's for you. Your house is full of big, huge spider. We're not coming to your place.
For anybody that joined late is really wondering what's up. You missed quite the spider attack.
There was a spider scare earlier.
It's a real. I'm sure it'll end up as a clip on the
It was
Clips
a
channel.
revealing moment about Adam. Yeah.
All right. Scott, other than right here, where can people see more of you? Talk comedy. You got any shows coming up?
Yeah, I am. Boy, this is going to sound like a hilarious thing, but this is the life of a live entertainer. But I am playing Smitty's in Red Deer next Saturday. So come on out, folks in Red Deer. And then I hit the Okanagan at the end of the month. Please come check me out. Kelowna, Penticton, West Kelowna. There's one more in there. But if you're in the Okanagan area, check it out.
There you go. Chris Henderson was just up in Fort Mac playing music at the casino. Do you have any other more musical gigs coming up?
I do. I'm going to be touring around doing a bunch of shows in Saskatchewan over the next couple of weeks. So that'll be a lot of fun. We're going to a bunch of small towns and I love these like arts council tours and they're beautiful theaters that don't get used nearly enough. So I'm looking forward to doing that, and then running back to Alberta again in a couple of weeks as well. So it's getting to be closer to busy season. The snow is melting, and I can start to smell
If you're
the
in
horse
Edmonton or
manure
Calgary,
behind the
buddy,
stage.
hit us up.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
At Baseball for Brains on Twitter. So go follow Chris. If you're in the Saskatchewan area, shoot him a message and figure out where he's playing, and then go check out some live music, because the only thing better than music is live music. So
Indeed.
I don't know. I just came up with that. Put it on a t-shirt for all
Put
I
it
care.
on a t-shirt. That's pretty good. Yeah.
Adequately put. Joel, what's going on, my friend?
You can find me here. Hey, Tommy on TikTok.
Can you talk about any of your massive projects you have in the works right now, or is everything still hush hush?
Weirdly enough, I'm allowed to talk about the Tommy John being with Happy Madison right now.
Hey,
Wow.
awesome.
I'm
We've been
allowed to talk
sitting
about
on
it.
that. I've been wanting to tell people about this.
I
Joel.
know.
I love that it's out there. Okay.
They said that I was allowed to talk about it. So there we go.
Wow.
Actually, his brother, I didn't even know Adam Sandler had a brother. He apparently has a brother named Scott who read the screenplay and very much liked it. Happy Madison is taking a shift to these more dramatic sports movies, like Uncut Gems was about sports betting, and Hustle was about basketball. And Adam Sandler's just been a classic kind of sports fan his entire life. Happy Gilmore, Waterboy, Longest Yard. He's always doing sports movies. And he happens to be the same age and Jewish, which is the doctor in the movie. Dr. Frank Job is a 55-year-old Jewish doctor. So he kind of, I feel like he finds himself playing a specific role in it. And fingers crossed, it'd be a great place for it. You know, the way that they're kind of shifting away from those sillier movies that they did in the 90s to these more, dramas with a little bit of comedy in it. I think that's kind of the idea of what the Tommy John script is all about. So, here's hoping that things pan out in the next month or so, and everybody's got a new baseball movie to watch in the next couple of years.
Dulcimerus chimes in the chat, says the Sandler brothers are Scott and Adam. Those two names sure go together a lot. There you go. All right. Well, congratulations, Joel. I know you got a lot of irons in the fire that you can't talk about, but that's certainly a big one, and we're excited.
Yeah, I can talk about that one.
So, very cool stuff. And then lastly, Craig Ballard, the new host of Locked On Blue Jays, daily, Monday to Friday now, correct?
Yes. Last and certainly least, and this so thrilled to go after Kami making multi-million-dollar movies. Okay, I'll try to follow that.
I'm trying to sewer you here, Craig.
Okay. But yes, absolutely. Locked On Blue Jays is the new daily podcast. On Twitter, it's Locked On Jays. I know you guys feel my pain. Locked On Blue Jays is one letter too much I know you guys feel my pain. So on Twitter, Locked On Jays. Yes, Monday to Friday. I'm seeing that however you say the name, Dulcimerus, whatever. I don't know. I see him in there. Thank you for that. GW54, Doug Edgar. I've seen Mantis Toboggan in my comments as well. So,
Mantis
yes,
Toboggan.
Dr. Mantis Toboggan, yes.
MD.
So some walk-off people coming over, which I love. And to be honest, I kind of not expected, but I hoped, because I've always been so impressed with the community the walk-off has here. So thank you guys for that. Every single day, it's wherever you get your podcasts. It's on YouTube every day. And this week, on a few episodes this week, I'm joined by Ben Verlander. So I'm pretty excited about that. Yeah, pretty excited about that. We'll get you set for the Houston series, and we'll get you set for the Yankee series on the weekend.
Very cool. All right. Well, to everybody, thanks for the great time, and we'll